They tried to break me, now they fear me. I am the silence they cannot escape. Watch closely, power wears no crown, the weight of being misunderstood I spoke. They ignored me, I acted, they judged me. They whispered behind my back, they nodded in my face and smiled like they were gods watching a puppet fail. I was overlooked, underestimated, misread. Every word I offered, twisted. Every action I took, questioned. Do you know what it feels like to be invisible while the world passes by? To scream and have the echoes swallowed by their arrogance, to reach for understanding and find only their contempt waiting at the end of your hand. I know, I lived it. I carried it like a weight around my chest. Heavy, constant, crushing, every glance, every smirk, every casual dismissal, the knives they buried into me were invisible to the world. But I felt them, every cut, every scar. They called me fragile, weak. They smiled as if my pain were a joke. They thought silence was my surrender. They never understood that silence was my shield. I watched, I waited, I learned. I learned that words are fragile, explanations are fragile, and the world is crueler than any lie I could have told. I spoke. They mocked. I explained. They laughed. I tried. They betrayed. I realized something in those long, empty nights. I realized that the world doesn't reward the misunderstood. It punishes them. It feeds on their confusion. It feasts on their vulnerability. And in that truth, I found clarity. I am not weak. I am not fragile. I am not their fool. The ones who call me powerless, they have never seen the storm I carry behind my silence. They have never felt the fire burning beneath the surface. They have never understood that being underestimated is a weapon, and I have been sharpening it for them. I was quiet, but my quiet was not submission. It was preparation. It was focus. It was the last thing they would ever expect. Look at me. Look at the scars they think mark defeat. Do you see weakness? No, you see proof. Proof that I survived. Proof that I endured. Proof that I will rise. I was left to wander alone, to fight invisible battles, to scream without sound, to bleed without notice. I know their names, I know their faces, I know their lies, and I know the truth they will never see. I am still standing. And one day they will hear me, not because I will beg, not because I will cry, not because I will explain, but because my silence, my quiet, will speak louder than anything they ever said. I was dismissed, I was ignored, I was mocked. And yet I survived. I survived not by seeking their approval. I survived not by winning their affection. I survived because I refused to be small. I am not a voice they can control. I am not a shadow they can chase. I am the calm before the storm they never saw coming. I spoke. They ignored. I acted. They judged. I waited. They failed. And in my silence I grew. In my quiet I became more than they could imagine. In my invisibility, I became unstoppable. You think silence is weakness. You think quiet is defeat. You think patience is surrender. No, silence is the weapon of the wise. Silence is the fortress of the powerful. Silence is the warning no one survives ignoring. They think they know me. They think they can measure my strength. They think they can predict my moves. Let them think. Let them guess. Let them underestimate me. Because when I finally speak, when I finally move, when they finally understand, it will be too late. I am not the person they wanted me to be. I am not the fool they assumed I was. I am not the victim they believed would crumble. I am rising from their doubt. I am rising from their mockery. I am rising from their mistakes. And when I rise, the weight of being misunderstood will become my crown. The pain of being overlooked will fuel my fire. The sting of their betrayal will sharpen my teeth. I will not whisper anymore. I will not beg for recognition. I will not explain. I will act. I will dominate. I will decide the terms. They will remember my silence. They will remember the last time they ignored me. They will remember the moment they underestimated me. And in that memory I will be victorious, because silence is not weakness. Silence is the final warning, and I am the one giving it. Shattered trust betrayal cuts deep. The world against me, they smiled at me. They called me friend. They promised loyalty. And all the while, they sharpened their knives in secret. Do you know what it is to trust and have that trust shattered? To give everything and be told it was nothing? To stand by someone's side and then feel the cold edge of their betrayal pressed against your back? I felt it, I lived it. Every whispered lie, every quiet plot, every smile hiding venom, they were all aimed at me. I was supposed to falter, I was supposed to break, I was supposed to fall. And yet I did not. They underestimated the way anger sharpens the mind. They underestimated the way pain steals the heart. They underestimated me, as they always do. Betrayal is a blade. It cuts deep. It leaves a scar that never fades. It leaves a fire that burns slow, relentless, unforgiving. I still remember the faces of those who betrayed me. The ones I called allies, friends, companions. They looked at me with arrogance, thinking my silence meant submission. Thinking my patience was weakness. I watched them. I memorized every smirk, every condescending glance, every half-truth that they dared to feed me. And inside me, something shifted. I no longer sought their approval. I no longer sought their understanding. I no longer sought their loyalty. I sought only one thing: clarity. Clarity in my purpose, clarity in my strength, clarity in the truth they were never mine to trust. They taught me a lesson they did not intend. They taught me that the world is cruel. They taught me that appearances deceive. They taught me that power belongs to the patient, the silent, the observant. I am patient, I am silent, I am observant, and I remember. Do you know how it feels to carry the weight of betrayal and turn it into a weapon? Do you know the taste of anger distilled into focus, rage refined into strategy? I do. I have savored it. I have molded it. I have used it to become something they never imagined. They call me vengeful. They call me bitter. They call me ruthless. Let them. Their words are empty. Their judgments are hollow. Their fears are real. For I am no longer a man shaped by their expectations. I am no longer a shadow dancing in the corners of their amusement. I am a storm waiting to be unleashed. I move through the world they thought they controlled. I walk among them unseen, unchallenged, unnoticed. And yet every step I take carries the weight of their mistakes. Every silence I keep is a mirror reflecting their cowardice. Every glance I give is a reminder they were fools to think I could be tamed. Do you want to understand betrayal? Do you want to feel its power? It is not found in anger alone. It is found in restraint. It is found in the quiet accumulation of knowledge. It is found in the patience to wait while your enemies play themselves into ruin. I learned to watch them spiral. I learned to watch their schemes unravel. I learned to let their confidence grow while their foundations crumble. They are predators in their own minds. I am the predator they never saw. The prey they thought they hunted is standing above them, patient, cold, inevitable. And when the moment comes, when the storm breaks, they will understand the cost of underestimating me. The betrayal was not just an attack. It was an education, a brutal, necessary lesson in power, in awareness, in survival. I was broken. No, I was sharpened. I was refined. I was forged into something more than human. Every whisper of doubt, every shadow of betrayal, they added steel to my spine, fire to my veins, ice to my patience. I have no need for forgiveness. I have no need for reconciliation. I have no need for their understanding. I need only myself and the world they cannot see. Do you know what it is to feel the ground shift beneath you? To realize that those you relied on, those you trusted, are incapable of loyalty. To realize that the very people you counted on are the architects of your suffering. It is a cold awakening, a brutal revelation, a moment that burns itself into memory. And in that moment, I chose. I chose not to be a victim. I chose not to plead. I chose not to explain. I chose to rise. I rose from the ashes of their deceit. I rose from the ruins of their lies. I rose silent, patient, unstoppable. And now I am the shadow they fear, the silence they cannot break, the truth they refuse to see. They are blind. They are weak. They are finished. I am ready. I am calm. I am inevitable. The weight of betrayal has become my throne. The sting of their treachery has become my sword. The memory of their mockery has become the fuel that drives me forward. I am not the one who falls. I am the one who waits. I am the one who strikes. I am the one who survives. They think I am lost. They think I am broken. They think silence means surrender. They are fools. And fools always pay the price. I will move. I will act. I will remind them of the lesson they never intended to teach me. Do not underestimate the misunderstood. Do not betray the patient. Do not ignore the quiet. For one day they will hear me. They will see me. They will feel the weight of my power. And when that day comes, it will not be mercy they face. It will not be apology. It will not be explanation. It will be the final warning. The warning they chose to ignore. The warning they deserve, because silence is not weakness. And I am not the one who forgives. The exhaustion of explaining I tried. I tried to make them see. I tried to make them understand. I tried to explain myself. Every day, every hour, every moment they chose to ignore me. I shouted, I reasoned, I pleaded, and still they struck. Still they judged. Still they thought my voice was weakness. Do you know that feeling? The relentless, grinding exhaustion of being unheard even when you scream the truth. Even when you speak with fire in your chest, clarity in your mind, and honesty in your voice. They hear you, they nod, they smile, and then they betray. I counted the times. The endless conversations where I tried to bridge the impossible gap. The explanations I offered like fragile glass. The patience I gifted like water to a desert that never thirsted for it. They never wanted understanding. They wanted compliance. They wanted me silent. They wanted me small. And every word I gave, every argument, every reasoning was met with dismissal, mockery, or worse, betrayal disguised as friendship. I realized then the world does not reward explanation. The world does not bend to your justifications. The world does not pause for your truth. I realized that explanation is not power. It is a cage, a slow, suffocating prison built from the desire to be understood, to be justified, to be accepted. And I grew tired of it, tired of bending, twisting, shaping my words to fit their fragile egos, tired of reasoning with the unreasonable, tired of begging the blind to see. I stopped. Not violently, not with rage at first. I stopped with the quiet certainty of someone who has nothing left to prove. The kind of silence that carries weight. The kind of silence that tells them, I will not play your game anymore. They noticed it immediately. Oh, they noticed. They paused. They tilted their heads uncertain. The smiles faltered. The nods became hesitant. The knives hidden in their pockets felt suddenly lighter. My silence was louder than any argument. My refusal to justify was sharper than any blade they ever drew. Do you know how terrifying that is to someone who thrives on control? To someone who feeds on compliance and fear? They don't know what to do when their prey stops running. They don't know what to do when their target stops explaining and simply stands. I watch them flounder. I watch them guess. I watch them falter under the weight of a truth they refuse to see. I am not here to explain myself. I am here to exist. I am here to move. I am here to become. Every nod I once gave, every word I once wasted, was a step I no longer take. Every argument, every justification, every plea was stripped from my arsenal, leaving only action, only presence, only inevitability. I realized then the futility of pleading for comprehension. I realized the emptiness of seeking validation from those too small to understand. I realized the power of silence, the power of withholding what they crave the most, my explanation, and it changed me, transformed me, forged me in the heat of their ignorance and the cold of their judgment. I no longer shouted, I no longer reasoned, I no longer pleaded, I acted. Every silent step was a message, every pause was a strike. Every unspoken word was a blade cutting through the illusion of control they held over me. They wanted justification, they wanted clarity, they wanted proof. I gave none. And that was my power. Do you know how it feels to stop fighting with words and start fighting with presence, to stop explaining and start commanding, to stop pleading and start existing in a way that cannot be ignored? It is intoxicating, it is terrifying, it is liberating. I could see it in their faces. The confusion, the doubt, the fear creeping slowly like a shadow stretching across the floor. They realized too late that the person they underestimated, the one they thought they could twist, manipulate, and justify, was gone, replaced by someone sharper, someone colder. Someone who understood that explanation is weakness. And from that understanding, I began to rise. Every conversation they tried to trap me in, I avoided. Every expectation they tried to bind me with, I ignored. Every demand for justification, I refused. And in the quiet, in the absence of my voice, the world shifted. The air thickened. The balance of power changed. I was no longer at their mercy. I was no longer their shadow. I was no longer the one they could define. I became my own definition. I became my own force. I became the storm they could not anticipate. They wanted me to explain. They wanted me to prove myself. They wanted my words as chains, as concessions, as currency. I refused, because silence, my silence, was not weakness. It was the final warning. A warning that I would no longer be bent. A warning that I would no longer be tamed. A warning that the person they thought they knew no longer exists. And in that silence, I found clarity. I found power. I found myself. Do you understand now? The exhaustion of explaining was the crucible, the fire in which I forged the weapon I now wield. I stopped speaking. And in the stopping, I began to rise, every expectation left unmet, every plea unanswered, every insult ignored. It all became fuel. Fuel for the storm, fuel for the inevitable reckoning. I do not shout anymore. I do not justify anymore. I do not bend. I exist. I move. I strike when it matters. And when I do, it is devastating. It is silent. It is complete. Because words are for those who beg to be heard. Actions are for those who refuse to explain. I stopped explaining. I stopped begging. I stopped apologizing. And the world finally had no choice but to listen. I stopped waiting. They learned too late. I waited. Longer than they ever imagined. Longer than patience could tolerate. Longer than loyalty deserved. I waited for the understanding that never came. I waited for recognition that never arrived. I waited for their mercy, their fairness, their justice, and every time I waited in vain. I watched them act. I watched them plot. I watched them believe they had time to shape me, to mold me, to control me. And they thought that patience was my weakness. Fools, I let them. I let them believe I was pliable. I let them think I was harmless. I let them underestimate the storm that brewed beneath my quiet. Every glance they cast, every whisper behind my back, every mockery they smiled through, I stored it. I measured it. I marked it like scars, invisible to the eye but heavy in the mind. And I waited. I stopped counting the days. I stopped hoping for change. I stopped pleading for acknowledgement. I only waited silently, patiently, deliberately, because power is not in the rushing. Power is not in the shouting. Power is in the stillness, in the waiting. And I became still, so still, that my silence was mistaken for fear. So still that my absence of reaction was taken for weakness. I watched them move, I watched them falter, I watched them assume that I would always wait, and in their arrogance, in their ignorance, in their hubris, they planted the seeds of their own downfall. Do you see it? How easy it is to underestimate someone when they hold their fire, when they hold their fury, when they hold their truth silent, patient, unyielding. I waited, and then I stopped, not suddenly, not without intention, not without letting them taste the weight of their errors. I stopped waiting, I acted, and they did not see it coming. They had no foresight, no clue, no understanding of the quiet, deliberate storm that had been building under their very noses. They learned too late. Every manipulation they had tried failed. Every lie they had spun collapsed. Every expectation they had set shattered. I did not strike blindly. I did not act impulsively. I moved with precision, with patience, with inevitability. Do you understand the terror of someone who waited, and then finally decided they had waited enough? It is not in the explosion of rage. It is not in the sudden flare of fury. It is in the calculated, deliberate release of power that had been measured, refined, and held in reserve for the perfect moment. They thought time was on their side. They thought my silence meant surrender. They thought my waiting meant weakness. They thought wrong. Every moment I held back, every second I endured was building, accumulating, sharpening, and when I moved, it was unstoppable. It was undeniable. It was devastating. I stopped waiting for their approval. I stopped waiting for their recognition. I stopped waiting for their mercy. I stopped for myself. For the first time, I moved entirely for me, for my own truth, for my own justice, for my own rise. Do you know what it feels like to stop waiting for a world that never came? To cease bending to expectations that were never fair, to finally act unbound, unrestrained, unrelenting. It is freedom, it is power. It is the sound of inevitability echoing through the bones of those who underestimated you, and they realized it too late. Oh, they realized, too late to hide, too late to bargain, too late to prepare. I moved through their confusion like a predator, silent, patient, precise. Each action a calculated response, each step a sentence, and I could see it in their faces. The disbelief, the panic, the dawning horror as they understood the one they thought would wait forever had finally stopped. And when I stopped waiting, they learned the person they underestimated was no longer constrained by courtesy, by patience, by fear of retaliation. The person they tried to manipulate was no longer bound by their rules. The person they assumed would always wait had become unstoppable. They had prepared for anger, for rebellion, for noise. But I brought something more precise, something more devastating. Silence, action, inevitability. Every move I made carried the weight of years of restraint. Every decision was calculated with the precision of someone who had been underestimated, ignored, and dismissed, and had survived. I became the storm they refused to see, the shadow they refused to understand, the force they never imagined until it was too late. Do you know the taste of inevitability? The moment when someone who has been patient finally acts, and nothing they do can undo it. It is bitter, it is sharp, it is absolute. I stopped waiting for a world that never changed. And in that stopping, I became the change it could not contain. Do not mistake my patience for fear. Do not mistake my waiting for weakness. Do not mistake my silence for submission. I waited, and now I strike. I strike with clarity. I strike with purpose. I strike with the understanding that every moment they wasted underestimating me only amplified the inevitability of their defeat. They learned too late, and I learned everything. I learned that time is a weapon when wielded correctly. I learned that silence is a sword sharper than any blade. I learned that patience is a power many will never understand until it is too late. And they learned it in the most devastating way, by realizing that the one they underestimated was never weak, was never silent out of fear, was never patient out of submission. I waited because I chose to. I waited because I knew the moment I acted it would be final. And now nothing can stop me, because the world thought I was waiting, but I was preparing. And by the time they saw me move, it was already too late. They learned the hard way. I stopped waiting, I stopped explaining, I stopped bending, and they finally, painfully understood. It was never about them, it was always about me. And the moment I stopped waiting, the world finally had no choice but to face me. Others shrink. I stand tall, look at them, scurrying, flinching, retreating. The moment they sense the shift, they shrink, small, fragile, hesitant. Their confidence evaporates in my presence. I don't need to raise my voice. I don't need to strike. I don't even need to make a move. They feel it. The weight of someone who no longer bends, the gravity of someone who no longer fears, the dominance of someone who has claimed themselves entirely. And they shrink. Every glance, every step I take, it pushes them back. Every pause, every stillness of mine, it forces them to step aside. I stand tall, unmoved, unbroken, a mountain in a world of quivering shadows. Do you know why they shrink? Because they never expected patience to carry power, because they never imagined restraint could terrify, because they never thought that calm could be unstoppable. I've watched them falter before. I've watched their arrogance crumble under the weight of my silence. I've seen their strategies fail, their manipulations backfire, their certainty vanish. And still they never understood. Until now they see me, really see me. And for the first time, they feel the size of what they misjudged. They shrink before me because they know deep down they were never the ones in control. They never were. Control was never theirs to wield. Power, true, absolute power, has always been mine. Look at yourself. Do you see the courage it takes to stand alone? Do you see the strength it takes to rise when everyone else expected you to crumble? Do you see the danger that comes with quiet certainty? I don't roar, I don't demand, I simply exist, and my presence reshapes the space around me. Others shrink. I stand tall. It is not arrogance, it is inevitability. It is the clarity of someone who has faced betrayal, isolation, and disregard, and refused to be diminished. Every step I take forward, every measured word I speak, every silent second I allow to stretch, it tightens the cage around those who doubted me. Do you feel it? The weight of someone who no longer negotiates with weakness. The pressure of someone who has embraced the power of their own patience. They shrink, they retreat, they falter, because I stand, tall, calm, absolute. They expected chaos. They expected a storm. They expected me to crumble under frustration, under injustice, under ridicule. They were wrong. The storm was never my approach. It was theirs. Mine is precision. Mine is silence. Mine is inevitability. Every reaction they have is proof of my dominance. Every flinch, every hesitation, every faltering step confirms what they have always feared. I am uncontainable. I am unavoidable. I am unshakable. And yet I do not celebrate. I do not gloat. I do not revel in their faltering. I simply stand, tall, silent, dominant, because this is power, quiet, measured, unyielding. The world once thought I was small. They thought I would bow. They thought I would break. They thought I would fade into insignificance, but I did not. And now the contrast is clear. Where others shrink, I rise. Where they retreat, I advance. Where they falter, I stand resolute. Do you understand? This is not about cruelty. This is not about revenge. This is about self-possession, self-command, absolute, undeniable dominance over your own destiny. I am the mountain. They are the shadows, and the higher I rise, the smaller they become. They do not understand fear. They do not understand inevitability. They do not understand the power of someone who has survived everything and decided to stand taller than the world itself. Every inch I claim, every space I occupy is a reminder. I exist in defiance. I exist in strength. I exist and they shrink. And that is enough. Enough to silence the doubters. Enough to command attention without a word. Enough to make the world bend, not because I demand it, but because I embody it. They shrink. I stand tall, and the difference is undeniable. This is not intimidation. This is reality. The world is not built for their fear, but it bends under my resolve. And those who once dismissed me see now that I am the measure of all things. I am the proof that silence, patience, restraint can become the most terrifying weapon of all. I stand tall, others shrink. And in this simple truth, I am absolute. I do not need their praise. I do not seek their validation. I do not require their understanding. I stand, and that is enough. Because the moment you stop shrinking, the world cannot ignore you. The moment you stand tall, even the shadows recognize the light. They shrink. I rise, I endure, I dominate. And that is everything. I stopped explaining, and they panicked. They wanted answers. They wanted reasons. They wanted excuses. I gave them none. For too long I tried. Too long I reasoned. Too long I pleaded. And for too long they ignored it all. They mocked. They scoffed. They laughed at my attempts, but now silence. I stopped explaining, and in that moment I saw it, the shift, the tremor beneath their confident steps, the panic flickering in their eyes. They thought they could understand me. They thought they could predict me. They thought I would bend to logic, to reason, to expectation. They were wrong. Silence is not weakness. Silence is a weapon. Silence is a boundary set in steel. Silence is a force that does not need validation, only obedience. And suddenly they realized. Their mockery faltered, their assumptions shattered. Their certainty collapsed into 1,000 tiny fractures. I did not speak, I did not explain. I simply existed, and the world around them began to panic. I watched it unfold. The way they searched for meaning, the way they tried to read signals that weren't there. The way their own fear betrayed them. I had removed the strings. I had cut the leash. I had taken back the narrative, and panic is contagious. It spreads like fire through the airless rooms of their minds. Every glance, every whisper, every hesitation, it multiplied. And I remained still, unmoved, unbent, unbroken, no explanation, no apology, no compromise. They expected chaos. They expected words. They expected me to justify, to beg, to bend. I gave them none of it, and in that absence, power shifted. The predator became invisible, and the prey became frantic, desperate, collapsing in their own assumptions. Do you feel it? The weight of silence, the way it forces others to confront the truth without mercy, without guidance, without compromise. They panic because they relied on me to fail. They panic because they counted on me to explain myself, to water down my strength, to shrink into their expectation. I stopped doing that, and suddenly their world contracted. Their confidence dwindled. Their laughter faltered. Their certainty vanished into air. I am not responsible for their fear. I am responsible for my own. I am responsible for standing without justification, because explanation is for the weak. Explanations feed doubt. Explanations give them power. I took that power back, and the panic was theirs to bear. Look at them, fumbling, flailing, frightened by the absence of my words, by the absence of my validation, by the absence of my permission to exist. They never thought I would do this. They never thought I could stay silent. They never imagined that a refusal could strike deeper than 1,000 accusations. I stopped explaining, and in that stillness I became unassailable, because control is not in speech. Control is not in reasoning. Control is in the refusal to be defined by others. I do not justify, I do not apologize, I do not clarify, I stand. And in that standing I dominate. Every flinch they make, every frantic glance, every whispered suspicion, it is confirmation. The balance has shifted. The predator is no longer hunting, the prey is lost in panic. And I watch, I wait, I rise, no words, no excuses, no explanations, only presence, only inevitability, only power. They panic, they falter, they crumble, because I stopped giving them the tools to destroy me, because I stopped handing over my strength in the guise of words. Silence is not absence. Silence is the most precise strike. Silence is authority undisputed, and now they know, they feel it. They cannot deny it. I am no longer at their mercy. I am no longer defined by their understanding. I am beyond explanation. They panic, and I revel in the clarity of my own control. Because I have learned the truth, they never feared me. They feared what I might become once I stopped trying to justify, and that is exactly what I have become. Watching them guess, watching them break, they started guessing. That was the first crack, guessing why I stopped speaking, guessing what I was planning, guessing who I had become. Guessing is weakness. Guessing is fear wearing a mask of intelligence. I watched them invent stories about me, whisper theories in corners, trade rumors like currency, build entire myths to replace the truth I refused to give them. And every guess pulled them deeper into their own collapse. Because when silence replaces explanation, the mind becomes its own executioner. They looked at my stillness and projected their guilt. They heard my quiet and filled it with their paranoia. They stared at my restraint and imagined violence, vengeance, inevitability. And none of it came from me. It came from them. That's the beauty of it. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't need to warn. I didn't need to move a single piece on the board. They destroyed themselves trying to predict me. Every second of my silence became a question they couldn't answer. Every breath I took without explanation tightened the walls around their thoughts. Every calm step I made without justification fractured their certainty. They needed clarity. They needed reassurance. They needed me to explain what I would do next. I gave them nothing, and nothing is unbearable to those who depend on control. They began to watch me, closely, obsessively, looking for signs, reading into pauses, analyzing expressions that meant nothing at all. They mistook calm for calculation, restraint for preparation, silence for an impending storm, and the storm existed only in their minds. I could see it in their eyes, the twitch of uncertainty, the hesitation before speaking my name, the way confidence drained from their posture the longer I remained unmoved. They started breaking long before I ever acted, because fear doesn't need an enemy. Fear only needs the unknown, and I became unknowable. Once they spoke over me. Now they spoke around me. Once they dismissed me. Now they feared the absence of my response. That is not coincidence. That is power. I let them guess. I let them spiral. I let them exhaust themselves trying to solve a puzzle that had no solution, because I was no longer playing their game. Every question they asked without receiving an answer weakened them. Every theory they created contradicted the last. Every assumption collapsed under the weight of the next. They argued among themselves, disagreed, turned inward, distrusted each other, all because I refused to speak. Do you understand what that means? I didn't need allies. I didn't need validation. I didn't need approval. Their fear did the work for me. They started seeing me everywhere, in pauses, in silence, in moments where nothing happened at all. That's when I knew they were breaking. Because when someone lives in your head without saying a word, you have already lost. They wanted closure. They wanted answers. They wanted a version of me they could understand, categorize, control. They didn't get it. They got uncertainty. They got reflection. They got their own insecurities screaming back at them through the void I left behind. I watched them hesitate where they once mocked. I watched them second-guess decisions they used to make without thought. I watched their confidence decay into caution and caution into fear. They were no longer reacting to me. They were reacting to the idea of me. And ideas are far more dangerous than actions because ideas cannot be confronted. They cannot be defeated. They cannot be reasoned with. They rot from the inside. I became the mirror they refused to look into. Every flaw they buried, every betrayal they justified, every weakness they projected onto me, it all came back to them. Silence has a way of doing that. I did not need revenge. I did not need violence. I did not need to raise my voice. I let them unravel themselves, piece by piece, thought by thought, night by restless night. They broke because they needed control, and I denied it. They broke because they relied on my reaction, and I gave them none. They broke because they assumed I needed their understanding, and I proved that I didn't. I stood still. They collapsed. That is the difference between strength and dominance. Strength fights, dominance waits, and now they cannot look at me without wondering. They cannot speak my name without hesitation. They cannot act without questioning what I might do next. Even though I have done nothing at all, that's the final lesson. Power doesn't announce itself. Power doesn't explain. Power doesn't rush. Power lets others destroy themselves trying to comprehend it. I watched them guess. I watched them break. And I learned something irreversible. When you stop feeding people access to your thoughts, they starve. When you stop explaining your existence, they lose their grip on reality. When you stand in silence long enough, the world reveals who was never strong to begin with. They are breaking, and I am still standing, unmoved, unexplainable, unavoidable. The moment fear replaced disrespect, there is a precise moment when disrespect dies. It doesn't scream. It doesn't announce itself. It suffocates quietly. I felt it before I saw it. A pause where laughter used to live. A hesitation where arrogance once stood tall. A silence after my name that never existed before. That's when it happened. Fear didn't arrive like a storm. It crept in like a shadow that had always been there, waiting for the light to fail. They didn't say it out loud. They didn't need to. Fear never begs for recognition. It takes the room without permission. Once they spoke to me carelessly, careless words, careless judgments, careless cruelty disguised as confidence. Once they assumed I would tolerate it, absorb it, explain myself beneath it, but fear rewrites memory. Suddenly they remembered me differently. Suddenly they reconsidered every word they had ever thrown my way. Suddenly the past felt dangerous. Because disrespect only survives when it believes it is safe, and safety had vanished. They stopped testing boundaries, stopped making jokes, stopped pushing, not because I warned them, not because I threatened them, but because they could no longer predict me. Fear thrives in uncertainty, and I had become a void they couldn't map. You see, disrespect needs reaction. It feeds on emotion. It grows louder when it feels untouchable. Fear is different. Fear whispers. Fear watches. Fear calculates risk. And suddenly I was no longer entertainment. I was no longer a target. I was no longer something they could casually provoke. I became a question mark with consequences. They started choosing words carefully, measuring tone, scanning my face for meaning that wasn't there. They looked at me the way people look at fire, not hostile, not aggressive, cautious. Once they underestimated my silence. Now they feared what it represented, because silence that endures is never empty. It is restraint. It is discipline. It is power refusing to waste itself. They began to feel it in their bodies, that instinctive tightening in the chest, that quiet voice that says, "Be careful." Fear doesn't shout that. Fear suggests it, and suggestions linger longer than commands. They stopped meeting my eyes for too long, stopped standing too close, stopped acting like the world belonged to them, not because I demanded respect, but because fear demanded distance, and distance is acknowledgement. Once they tried to dominate me with noise. Now they lowered their voices around me. Once they dismissed me as harmless. Now they questioned whether I was merciful. That's the shift. Disrespect assumes weakness. Fear respects potential. And potential is far more terrifying than action. They didn't need proof of what I could do. The absence of proof was enough, because what is unseen is always imagined as worse. I watched them change, watched posture replace swagger, watched certainty dissolve into caution. They began checking themselves, reconsidering choices, avoiding unnecessary conflict, all without a word from me. That's the moment you stop being prey, when others regulate themselves around you, when their behavior changes before you ever intervene. That is dominance without force. They told themselves stories to cope. He's calm now. He's different. He's unpredictable. They said it like comfort, but it was confession. Fear doesn't mean panic. Fear means respect born from awareness. And awareness had finally arrived. They understood something they never considered before. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their permission. I didn't need their understanding. I was no longer waiting. And people who stop waiting terrify those who live on delay. They felt it when I stopped reacting. Felt it when their provocations died mid-air. Felt it when their power no longer echoed in me. Because power that isn't reflected back feels like shouting into a grave. That's when fear set. They didn't hate me. They didn't love me. They respected the space I occupied, and space is everything. Space means boundary. Space means consequence. Space means you are no longer entitled to access. Fear taught them that. I didn't change my posture, didn't sharpen my tone, didn't announce transformation. I remained exactly the same. They were the ones who changed. That's how you know it's real. When your stillness forces evolution in others. Disrespect dies when it realizes it no longer matters. Fear rises when it understands it cannot control. And control was their addiction. They needed dominance to feel safe. They needed hierarchy to feel important. They needed me beneath them to justify themselves. But fear rearranges hierarchy. Fear places distance. Fear creates caution. Fear acknowledges risk. And suddenly I was risk, not because I was loud, but because I was done. Done explaining, done reacting, done performing strength for people who only understand volume. I became quiet strength, and quiet strength rewrites every room it enters. They felt it, every single one of them, that subtle, undeniable shift. The moment mockery turned into silence. The moment entitlement turned into restraint. The moment fear replaced disrespect. And once that happens, it never goes back, because fear remembers, fear learns, fear adapts, disrespect forgets. I didn't rise by force. I didn't conquer by aggression. I outgrew the need to be challenged. And that is when fear arrives. When people realize you are no longer asking for a place, you are becoming one. Unmovable, unprovoked, uncontrolled. Fear didn't make me powerful. Fear revealed that I already was, and now they know. They may never say it, they may never admit it, but they feel it every time they hesitate. The moment fear replaced disrespect was the moment I stopped being underestimated forever. Turning point, questioning the world and myself, there was a moment when I stopped blaming them. And that terrified me more than any betrayal ever did, because blame is easy. Blame gives direction. Blame gives comfort, but questions strip you naked. I asked myself something I had avoided for years, something dangerous, something irreversible. Was the world always this cruel, or was I simply too soft to survive it? I sat with that question longer than I sat with any wound. Longer than any apology I never received, longer than any promise that died in someone else's mouth. Because if the world was cruel, then my suffering had meaning. It was inevitable, unavoidable. But if I was too soft, then the responsibility was mine. And that truth cuts deeper than any enemy ever could. I replayed everything, every dismissal, every betrayal disguised as misunderstanding. Every time my kindness was treated like weakness, I told myself stories to survive. They didn't know better. They were hurting too. They didn't mean it. Lies I wrapped around my spine to keep standing, but the pattern never changed. Only the faces did. That's when doubt crawled in, slow, persistent. What if the world wasn't broken? What if it was operating exactly as designed? What if it rewards sharp edges and punishes open hands? I looked at my scars differently then, not as proof of resilience, but as evidence of misplaced mercy. I had believed something dangerous. That goodness would be recognized. That patience would be respected. That silence would be understood. I believed the world was fair, and the world laughed at that belief. Not loudly, not cruelly, indifferently. That's what hurt the most. Indifference. I realized something no one warns you about. The world doesn't crush you because it hates you. It crushes you because it doesn't notice you bleeding. Pain isn't personal, it's procedural. And that truth shattered me because I had personalized everything. Every failure, every rejection, every moment I was overlooked. I thought it meant something about my worth, but worth has nothing to do with survival. Strength does. I asked myself harder questions then, questions without mercy. Why did I keep explaining myself to people who benefited from misunderstanding me? Why did I keep softening my edges for those who sharpened theirs on my back? Why did I keep waiting for fairness in a world that rewards force? Was I noble or was I naive? That distinction matters because nobility chooses restraint. Naivety mistakes restraint for safety. And safety was an illusion I could no longer afford. I saw it clearly then. The pattern I had refused to name. The world tests you, quietly, constantly. It pushes, it takes, it watches. And if you bend, it pushes harder. I had bent my entire life, not because I was weak, but because I believed bending made me human. But humanity, unchecked, becomes vulnerability. And vulnerability, unguarded, becomes an invitation. That realization didn't arrive with rage. It arrived with exhaustion, a deep, bone-heavy exhaustion. I was tired of being reasonable in an unreasonable world, tired of being gentle in systems built on pressure, tired of offering understanding where none was returned. I wasn't angry yet. I was awakening. There's a difference. Anger explodes, awakening sharpens. I began to see the rules no one admits exist, how power moves quietly, how dominance wears politeness when it needs to, how cruelty often smiles, and I saw my place in it, not as a victim, but as a participant who refused to adapt. That truth nearly broke me, because adaptation means change, and change means letting parts of yourself die. I mourned the version of me that believed effort was enough. The version that thought intention mattered more than impact. The version that thought silence was dignity instead of exposure. I mourned him deeply, but mourning is not weakness. It's preparation, because once you bury the illusion, you free the strength it was suffocating. I asked myself one final question, the one that sealed everything. If the world will not soften for me, why should I remain soft for it? That wasn't cruelty. That was balance. The realization didn't turn me cold. It turned me precise. I didn't reject empathy. I learned to ration it. I didn't abandon kindness. I learned to weaponize restraint. I didn't stop feeling. I stopped bleeding publicly. That's when the transformation began. Not with fire, not with violence, but with clarity. Clarity is dangerous, because once you see the game, you can never pretend you're not playing. I understood then, the world rewards those who understand it, not those who wish it were different. And wishing had cost me too much already, so I made a quiet decision, not spoken, not announced. I would no longer measure myself by their reactions. I would no longer interpret cruelty as a misunderstanding. I would no longer confuse endurance with virtue. I would change, not into something monstrous, but into something unignorable. The softness didn't disappear. It went underground, where it could no longer be exploited. What surfaced instead was resolve, cold, focused, unapologetic. I stopped asking why they treated me the way they did. I started asking what that treatment revealed about the world. And once you understand the world, you stop begging it. You move through it. That was the turning point. The moment I stopped romanticizing suffering. The moment I stopped worshiping patience. The moment I chose evolution over approval. I didn't become ruthless overnight. I became deliberate, and deliberate people terrify systems built on assumption. The world didn't change in that moment. I did. And once that happens, nothing ever feels the same again. The power of silence as shield, retreat and observation. I didn't disappear. I withdrew. There's a difference most people never learn to recognize. Disappearing is surrender. Withdrawing is strategy. I stopped showing up where my presence was consumed but never respected. Stopped offering words to mouths that only listened for weakness. Stopped reacting on cue like a trained animal in someone else's arena, not because I was afraid, because I was finished wasting energy on people who mistook access for entitlement. Silence wasn't absence, it was armor. I spoke less. I watched more. And in that quiet, something sharpened inside me. Every glance became a map. Every hesitation became a confession. Every word they spoke when I stopped interrupting revealed more than 1,000 arguments ever could. People expose themselves when you stop filling the space for them. They get nervous. They over-explain. They contradict themselves. They tell you exactly who they are when they think you're no longer listening. I learned that silence makes liars panic. It makes manipulators reckless. It makes the insecure loud, and it terrifies those who rely on noise to maintain control. When I stopped responding immediately, they leaned forward. When I stopped justifying myself, they rewrote the narrative louder. When I stopped defending my intentions, they accused me of things I never needed to deny. That's how I knew. Silence was working. I wasn't retreating to heal. I was retreating to see, to study patterns, to trace motives, to understand the machinery behind their behavior. Because once you see the machine, you stop fearing the noise it makes. I watched how kindness was taken for granted, how boundaries were treated as betrayal, how respect only arrived once fear stood beside it. And I took notes, not on paper, in instinct. I noticed who only contacted me when they needed something, who grew distant when I stopped offering emotional labor for free, who became hostile when I no longer rushed to clarify misunderstandings they benefited from. Silence separated allies from parasites with surgical precision. I didn't announce my withdrawal. I didn't make a speech. I didn't seek closure. I simply stopped explaining, and the world reacted exactly as expected. Some called it arrogance. Some called it immaturity. Some called it weakness. Let them. The loudest accusations always come from those who just lost access. In silence, I learned timing. I learned restraint. I learned that power doesn't rush to be understood. Power waits. I used to believe silence was passive, that it meant submission. I was wrong. Silence is pressure. Silence is control. Silence is choosing not to reveal your position while everyone else fires blindly. When you speak less, you stop giving people material to twist. When you react less, you stop feeding their sense of importance. When you explain nothing, you force them to sit with their assumptions. And assumptions destroy people faster than truth ever could. I watched them project, their fears, their guilt, their intentions. They told on themselves without realizing it. And I stayed quiet, not out of politeness, out of discipline, because discipline is what separates the emotional from the unstoppable. I learned to sit in discomfort without reaching for validation, to let silence stretch until it made others uncomfortable, to resist the urge to correct lies that would collapse under their own weight. That restraint rewired me. I stopped craving immediate resolution. I stopped chasing understanding. I stopped mistaking urgency for importance. Silence taught me patience with teeth. I wasn't hiding, I was loading. Every ignored message sharpened my resolve. Every misinterpretation clarified my position. Every insult delivered in my absence confirmed what I already knew. They didn't want truth, they wanted access, and access was revoked. In the quiet, I began to hear myself again, not the version shaped by expectation, not the version softened to be digestible. The real voice, calm, measured, unmoved. That voice didn't need to announce strength. It carried it. I realized something crucial then. People mistake silence for compliance because they confuse noise with power. But the most dangerous individuals are rarely the loudest. They're the ones watching while everyone else exhausts themselves performing. Silence allowed me to see angles others missed, to anticipate moves before they were made, to recognize patterns repeating across different faces. I stopped being surprised by betrayal. I stopped being shocked by disrespect. I started expecting it. And expectation is preparation. I withdrew from arguments that led nowhere, from debates designed to drain, from conversations that demanded vulnerability without offering safety. Not every battle deserves your presence. Not every provocation deserves your voice. Silence taught me selectivity, and selectivity is power refined. I no longer spoke to be understood. I spoke only when words would land with precision. Everything else stayed inside, not suppressed, contained, like a blade sheathed until necessary. That's when they started noticing. The change, the calm where reaction used to live, the stillness where explanations once poured out, the lack of urgency where emotion once leaked. They felt it before they understood it. Because silence changes the temperature in a room, it shifts dynamics, it unsettles hierarchies built on predictability. They didn't know how to read me anymore, and unreadable is dangerous. I wasn't becoming distant. I was becoming opaque. I let them guess. I let them assume. I let them underestimate, because underestimation is a gift. Silence made me patient enough to accept it. I stopped needing to be right. I stopped needing to be seen as good. I stopped needing to be liked. Those needs were liabilities I didn't even know I was carrying. Silence stripped them away. What remained was focus, cold, clear, uncluttered. I didn't withdraw because I was losing. I withdrew because I was done playing a game designed to drain me. And in that quiet recalibration, something irreversible happened. I realized I didn't need to announce my strength. They would feel it soon enough. Psychological warfare begins. Something strange happens when you stop explaining yourself. People don't relax, they unravel. At first, they assume it's temporary, a mood, a phase. They wait for you to return to the version they could predict. You don't, so they start guessing. Why is he quiet? Why isn't she reacting? Why didn't they respond the way they used to? Silence turns curiosity into unease. And unease is where power changes hands. They replay old conversations, searching for clues they missed. They reanalyze your tone, your pauses, your last words. They scroll back through memories, trying to locate the moment they lost control. You never tell them, you let them wonder. Because unanswered questions echo louder than accusations. I didn't threaten anyone. I didn't confront anyone. I didn't announce a shift. I simply became unreadable. And unreadable people are dangerous in a world addicted to patterns. They started filling the silence for me. Some tried kindness, sudden respect, carefully worded messages. Others tried dominance, passive aggression, public dismissal meant to provoke a response. I gave them nothing, no defense, no reassurance, no reaction, and that absence became unbearable. Because when you don't react, you force people to confront their own intentions. They don't know if you're angry. They don't know if you're planning. They don't know if you've moved on or moved closer. Uncertainty poisons fragile egos. They began to doubt themselves. Did I misjudge them? Did I push too far? Do they know something I do? I watched confidence crack without lifting a finger. Silence did the work for me. Rumors started circulating. Explanations invented. Stories told to fill the void I refused to occupy. I let them. Because lies told in my absence collapsed faster than truths I ever defended. People exposed their fear by the way they spoke about me when I wasn't there. Some exaggerated my calm into menace. Some reframed my restraint as arrogance. Some tried to minimize me to convince themselves I was still manageable. None of it mattered. They were thinking about me, constantly. And I wasn't thinking about them at all. That imbalance is lethal. Psychological warfare doesn't start with intimidation. It starts with silence that refuses to bend. I learned when to pause before speaking, when to let eye contact linger half a second longer than comfort allows, when to walk away mid-conversation without explanation, not rudely, not dramatically, calmly, as if nothing they said required my attention. That calm destabilized them more than anger ever could. Anger gives people something to fight. Silence gives them nowhere to stand. They tried to bait me, insults disguised as jokes. Questions framed as concern, provocations meant to draw blood. I smiled, not a friendly smile, not a cruel one, a knowing one, the kind that says, I see you. And I'm not impressed. That smile haunted them, because it told them I was no longer operating on their emotional frequency. I wasn't reacting, I was observing. Every move they made revealed their strategy. Every attempt to provoke showed their fear. Every escalation proved they needed control more than I needed validation. They started overcorrecting, explaining themselves unprompted, justifying actions I never questioned, apologizing for things I never mentioned. Guilt rises when silence removes the distraction of noise. I let it rise, I let it ferment, because guilt makes people sloppy. They contradicted themselves, they exposed alliances. They revealed motives they'd hidden behind charm, and I stored it all away. Not with malice, with clarity. I didn't need to attack. They were dismantling themselves. I became deliberate with my presence. Sometimes I showed up and said nothing. Sometimes I didn't show up at all. Sometimes I spoke one sentence and ended the conversation. Each choice felt intentional, measured, unpredictable. Unpredictability is power refined. They couldn't read my next move, so they projected their worst fears onto me. They assumed I was plotting because that's what they would have done. Projection is confession in disguise. I watched respect replace familiarity. Caution replace casual disrespect. Distance replace entitlement, not because I demanded it, because silence demanded it for me. People don't fear loud threats. They fear quiet certainty. They fear someone who doesn't rush, someone who doesn't explain, someone who doesn't need to prove they belong. I didn't raise my voice. I lowered my availability. And suddenly everything shifted. They measured their words around me. They chose phrases carefully. They watched my reactions like weather signs. The balance tilted, not violently, not dramatically. Inevitable, psychological warfare doesn't announce itself. It settles in slowly like a pressure change you can't escape. I wasn't manipulating emotions. I was removing myself from the game they understood. And without rules they could predict, they panicked. That panic wasn't loud. It was subtle in the hesitation before they spoke, in the forced laughter, in the overcompensation. They didn't know where they stood with me. And that uncertainty stripped them of leverage. I had become the variable they couldn't control. And control, once lost, becomes obsession. I never needed to dominate them. I only needed to stop being accessible. Silence did the rest. Because when you no longer seek approval, when you no longer explain your intentions, when you no longer react on demand, you stop being prey. You become a presence, cold, composed, unavoidable. And that is when fear quietly replaces disrespect. Not because you asked for it, but because they felt it, deep down, before a single word was ever spoken again. The world misinterprets silence. They looked at my silence and saw weakness. That was their first mistake. They mistook restraint for fear, patience for hesitation, calm for surrender. They thought silence meant I had nothing left to say. What it really meant was that I had nothing left to prove. In a world addicted to noise, silence gets labeled small, invisible, harmless. People believe power announces itself. That strength raises its voice. That dominance demands attention. So when I stopped speaking, they relaxed. They leaned back. They smiled. They assumed the fight was over. They thought I had accepted my place beneath their expectations. I watched them grow comfortable. Comfort makes people careless. They spoke over me with confidence. They dismissed me with certainty. They made decisions as if my absence from the conversation meant my absence from the outcome. They mistook quiet for consent. Inside, I smiled, because nothing reveals arrogance faster than how someone behaves when they think you're no longer a threat. They underestimated the weight of silence. Silence is not empty, it is compressed, like a storm before it breaks, like pressure behind a locked door. I wasn't shrinking, I was condensing. Every insult they whispered, thinking I wouldn't respond. Every opportunity they denied, assuming I wouldn't fight. Every boundary they crossed, believing I wouldn't push back. I took it all in, not as pain, as information. They mistook my stillness for passivity, but stillness is where predators wait. They mistook my lack of reaction for agreement, but agreement requires attention. And I had withdrawn mine. They spoke freely around me. They revealed how they saw me, how small they believed I was, how temporary they thought my presence would be. They laughed at my restraint. They mistook my silence as permission to underestimate. I let them because nothing accelerates someone's fall faster than believing the ground beneath them is stable. They assumed I was waiting for approval, waiting for validation, waiting for a signal. They didn't realize I was waiting for alignment, timing, clarity. They didn't notice the shift happening inside me. The moment when disappointment turned into detachment, when hope dissolved into resolve, when the need to be understood died quietly. They thought silence meant indecision, but indecision is loud. It argues with itself. It pleads for reassurance. My silence was clean, focused, final. I stopped defending my intentions, stopped correcting their assumptions, stopped explaining my perspective, not because I couldn't, because I no longer needed them to understand. Understanding is a currency for those still negotiating their worth. I was done negotiating. They continued misreading me. They thought I was playing small, that I was regrouping in fear, that I was licking wounds. They couldn't imagine silence as strategy, because strategy requires patience, and patience terrifies impatient minds. I watched their confidence grow reckless. They spoke with certainty about my limits. They set expectations for what I would and wouldn't do. They were wrong, but I never interrupted, because the loudest lesson is the one you don't announce. They thought I was waiting for permission. I was waiting for inevitability. Inside, there was no chaos, no confusion, only a steady satisfaction. They think I am small. They think I wait. They think I am contained by their assumptions. They will see. Silence sharpened my vision. I noticed patterns others missed. Intentions behind smiles, fear behind bravado. When you stop speaking, you start seeing. You hear the cracks in confidence, the tremor in voices pretending to be sure, the insecurity disguised as dominance. They were louder because they were unsure. I was quiet because I was certain. They mistook my withdrawal for retreat, but retreat runs away. I stepped back to measure the distance, to understand the terrain, to decide where to strike, not with violence but with presence. Silence stripped away distraction. It forced me to confront myself without the noise of validation, and I liked what remained. No desperation, no need to convince, no hunger for applause, just intent. They kept underestimating, they kept assuming, they kept mistaking calm for compliance. Every misinterpretation stacked the odds further in my favor. Because when people believe you are weak, they reveal how they plan to exploit strength. They show their hand. They expose their pressure points. They demonstrate exactly how they operate when they think they're safe. I let them think that. I let them feel superior. I let them feel untouchable. Silence gave them the illusion of control, and illusions are fragile. They never asked why I stopped explaining, why I stopped reacting, why I stopped seeking inclusion. They assumed the answer was defeat. They never considered evolution. Silence isn't absence, it's preparation. It's the moment the blade is drawn but not yet seen. It's the pause before a decision that cannot be undone. They mistook my quiet for weakness. What they didn't realize, weakness begs to be heard. Power doesn't need permission to arrive. I wasn't shrinking. I was choosing my moment. And when that moment comes, there will be no explanation, no justification, no warning, only clarity. Because by the time the world understands my silence, it will already be too late to misunderstand me again. First taste of power, the first time it worked, I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Because power, real power, doesn't announce itself with fireworks. It arrives quietly, like a shift in gravity, like the room leaning in your direction without knowing why. I said nothing. And something changed. A conversation stalled. A decision hesitated. A confident voice cracked just slightly. Not because I spoke, because I didn't. That was the moment I understood. Silence wasn't just protection, it was influence. Before I had fought to be heard, argued my logic, defended my intentions, and every word had made me smaller. But this time I withdrew my voice and watched the world reach for it. They filled the space I left behind, with assumptions, with fear, with doubt. And doubt is a crack, cracks spread. They started second-guessing themselves. Why isn't he reacting? Why isn't she responding? Did we miss something? I didn't answer. I let the questions rot inside their heads. That was my first victory, not loud, not dramatic, invisible. A meeting ended early. A plan changed direction. A tone softened. No one could explain why, but I could. Silence forces people to confront themselves. When there's no response, they project. They imagine resistance. They invent consequences. I became a shadow in their peripheral vision, unseen, but felt like something circling just outside the firelight. I didn't need to strike. The idea of me was enough. Another moment, another pause. They waited for my reaction before committing. That's when I tasted it again, that subtle pull, that unspoken authority. They were adjusting their behavior around my absence. I hadn't said yes. I hadn't said no. And yet they hesitated. Predators don't roar before the hunt. They observe. They move when the prey exhausts itself with panic. I watch them over-explain, over-justify, overcompensate, all the things I used to do, and suddenly they were doing them for me. I learned something dangerous then. Words are expensive. Silence is interest-bearing. Every second I didn't respond, my leverage grew. Every time I withheld commentary, the room tilted further. I felt it in their eyes, that flicker, that uncertainty. They were trying to read me, and finding nothing. You cannot negotiate with a void. You cannot manipulate what doesn't reveal itself. I became unreadable, and unreadable is untouchable. Small victories stacked quietly. A decision delayed because we should wait. An apology offered without demand. A tone of respect where there used to be dismissal. No confrontation, no explanation, just absence shaping outcomes. It thrilled me, not like adrenaline, but like clarity. Like finally understanding the rules of a game I'd been losing my whole life. I wasn't powerful because I dominated. I was powerful because I disrupted expectations. They expected resistance. I gave them nothing. They expected compliance. I gave them space. And in that space, they unraveled. I was no longer reacting to the world. The world was reacting to me. I could feel it, that hum beneath the surface. Like standing at the edge of a storm you no longer fear. I moved differently. Slower, more deliberate. I didn't rush to clarify misunderstandings. I let them harden because misunderstandings make people cautious, and cautious people make mistakes. I watched them glance toward me before speaking, watched them measure their words, watched them circle my silence like prey circling a shadow they can't identify. That was the thrill, not cruelty, control, not dominance, gravity. I didn't need to assert myself. My restraint did it for me. I realized then power doesn't come from being seen, it comes from being felt. Shadows don't need permission. They exist because light creates them, and the brighter their confidence became, the darker my presence felt. They started projecting motives onto me. Plans, threats, intentions I never confirmed. I let them, because imagined power is often stronger than declared power. I was no longer in the center of the room. I was behind the room, above it, watching, calculating, enjoying the silence like a private language only I understood. This was just the beginning, a taste, a warning I never voiced. Because once you understand how easily people reveal themselves to silence, you never need to raise your voice again. You just wait, and let the world tell you exactly how much power you're holding. The illusion of approval dies. I used to listen for it. that invisible sound, the nods, the praise, the subtle permission to exist. I measured myself by reactions, by expressions, by whether my presence was tolerated or applauded. I was hungry for approval, and hunger makes you obedient. I see that now. I see how easily I bent, how often I explained myself to people who never planned to understand, how many times I softened my edges so others could feel safe. I thought that was strength. It was negotiation, and I am done negotiating my worth. Listen carefully. This is not anger speaking, this is clarity. There was a moment, quiet, almost disappointing, when it finally clicked. No applause was coming, no final validation, no ceremony where the world admitted it was wrong about me. Just silence, and in that silence I realized something devastating. They were never going to approve of me, not fully, not honestly, not without conditions, so I stopped asking. I stopped waiting for permission to become who I already was. I stopped explaining my intentions like they were crimes, because approval is a leash. And I had been holding the other end the entire time. I owed them nothing, not my reasoning, not my softness, not my reassurance. I owe no one clarity. I owe no one justification. I owe no one comfort. Say it again. I owe no one clarity. I owe no one justification. I owe no one comfort. That realization didn't explode. It settled, like a blade sliding into place. Calm, cold, final. I began to feel lighter, not because life became easier, but because I stopped carrying expectations that were never mine to hold. I no longer needed to be understood. Understanding is a luxury, not a requirement. I no longer needed to be liked. Likability is a currency for people afraid of being alone. I no longer needed to prove my intentions. Intentions don't matter to those committed to misunderstanding you. So I withdrew my explanations. I let them think what they wanted. Weak, arrogant, cold, changed. Let them. Their opinions were mirrors, not truths, and I stopped looking. You feel it too, don't you? That exhaustion from constantly clarifying who you are, that weight of being palatable. That fear that if you stop explaining, you'll be abandoned. Here's the truth they never tell you. If your presence requires constant explanation, you were never accepted, only tolerated. I chose something else, self-definition. I became comfortable being misinterpreted, because being misinterpreted by the wrong people is freedom. I stopped correcting assumptions. I stopped chasing closure. I stopped trying to be seen clearly by those who preferred me blurry and manageable. There is power in being unresolved, unlabeled, unbothered. I didn't harden, I focused. I didn't isolate, I prioritized. And the moment I stopped seeking approval, everything shifted. The anxiety faded, the need to perform vanished. I spoke when I meant it. I stayed silent when I didn't. I moved without announcement. And for the first time, my energy belonged to me, not to their expectations, not to their comfort, not to their fragile image of who I should be. I owed no one clarity. I owed no one justification. I owed no one comfort. I owed myself alignment. I owed myself honesty. I owed myself the right to evolve without explanation. That's when I felt it, that quiet dominance, not over others, over myself. I was no longer negotiating my identity in every room. I entered whole. And if that unsettled them, good. Let them sit with it. Let them question. Let them feel the absence of access they once took for granted, because I am not here to be digestible. I am here to be exact. Approval demands performance. Conviction demands nothing. And I chose conviction, so if you're listening, if you're tired of shrinking your truth into something acceptable, hear this. You don't need to be understood to be powerful. You don't need permission to be complete. You don't need approval to be inevitable. Stand still. Withdraw the explanation. Let silence do the work. Let them wonder. Let them doubt. Let them adjust. Because the moment you stop asking to be chosen, you choose yourself. And that choice, that is where your real power begins. Embracing the villainous self, there comes a moment when you finally understand it. Love is fragile. It breaks under pressure. It demands compromise. It asks you to shrink so others can feel tall. Fear is honest. Fear doesn't need approval. Fear doesn't ask permission. Fear doesn't beg to be chosen. Fear is respected. And I stopped pretending that love was the higher road. I tried it. I tried being gentle in a brutal world. I tried being kind where kindness was mistaken for weakness. I tried being warm while standing in rooms built of ice. And all it did was teach them how far they could push me. So I let it burn. That version of me, the one desperate to be liked, I threw it into the fire, not out of hatred, out of necessity. Because fire doesn't apologize for being hot. Steel doesn't soften itself to spare weak hands. Darkness doesn't explain why it arrives. They simply are, and I decided to be the same. This is where the shift happened, not loud, not dramatic, quiet, deliberate. I stopped flinching at their discomfort. I stopped correcting their fear. I stopped saying, I'm not that person. Because I just hadn't accepted it yet. They whispered the word like it was an insult. Villain, cold, dangerous, unpredictable. They thought it would wound me. It liberated me, because villains don't live for applause. Villains live for outcome. I stopped chasing love that required my silence. I stopped begging for acceptance from people who thrived on my restraint. And something ancient woke up inside me, a hunger for truth, a respect for power, a loyalty to self over perception. I didn't become cruel, I became precise. I didn't lose empathy, I learned where to withhold it. I didn't abandon morality, I abandoned submission. Understand this. Being feared is not about terror, it's about certainty. When people fear you, they hesitate. They measure their words. They think twice before crossing lines they once danced over. Fear establishes borders where love gets exploited. And I needed borders, so I embraced the archetype they assigned me. If standing firm makes me the villain, then I will wear the title like armor. If refusing to bleed for free makes me cold, then let me be ice. If knowing my power makes them uneasy, then let them tremble. I was done proving I was harmless. Harmless things are disposable. I chose to be dangerous, controlled, focused, awake. I felt myself harden not into something brittle, but into steel, forged by pressure, tempered by betrayal, sharpened by silence. Steel doesn't seek approval from fire, it survives it. And darkness is not evil, darkness is space. Darkness is where things grow without being watched, where plans mature unseen, where strength doesn't need to perform. I learned to move there, quiet, patient, intentional. They started sensing it, that shift in the air, the way I no longer explained myself, the way my silence carried weight, the way my presence stopped asking and started declaring. I didn't announce my transformation, I embodied it, and that frightened them more than any threat ever could. Because the most dangerous person in the room is the one who knows who they are and no longer needs permission to be it. Look at yourself, at the scars, at the restraint you were praised for, at the anger you swallowed to stay good. Ask yourself something honest. How much power did you give away trying to be loved? How much truth did you suffocate to stay accepted? I stopped. I chose a different crown, not one made of admiration, but of respect earned through presence alone. They don't have to like me, they just have to remember me. I don't need to be embraced, I need to be undeniable. So yes, I accepted it. I am not the hero of their story, I am the consequence, the line they hesitate to cross. The silence that changes the room. the fire they thought they could control until it learned its own name. I stand fully now, not asking, not explaining, not apologizing. Let them love softer things. I chose power, and I will never unchoose it. The moment of absolute clarity, there was a moment, not loud, not explosive, no applause, no witnesses, just a stillness so deep it felt like the world finally stopped lying to me. And in that silence, I understood everything. Silence was never weakness. It was restraint, it was control. It was the hand hovering over the blade, not the blade itself. All my life, they told me to speak up, explain yourself, defend your intentions, prove your innocence, clarify your heart, as if truth needed permission to exist, as if power came from noise. I believed them once. I thought volume meant strength. I thought reaction meant relevance. I thought if I stayed quiet, I would disappear. I was wrong. Silence didn't erase me, it revealed me. Because when I stopped speaking, something strange happened. They leaned in. They filled the gaps with their fear, their assumptions, their guilt. My quiet became a mirror, and they couldn't stand what they saw. That's when it hit me. Words are currency for the insecure. Explanations are offerings to those who doubt you. Noise is a tool for people who don't know how to wait. But silence is ownership. When you speak, you give pieces of yourself away. When you explain, you surrender leverage. When you react, you let others decide your rhythm. But when you go quiet, you take it all back. I felt it settle into my bones, that calm, that terrifying calm, the kind that doesn't rush, doesn't justify, doesn't flinch. The kind that watches storms form and doesn't step aside. They mistook it at first. They always do. They thought I was unsure. They thought I was hurt. They thought I was shrinking, and I let them. Because predators reveal themselves when they think you're weak. I watched how they spoke when they thought I wouldn't answer. I listened to what they assumed when I didn't correct them. I learned who they really were when they believed I had no teeth. Every pause gave me information. Every silence gave me power. And slowly, quietly, the balance shifted. I stopped feeling the urge to be understood. That was the death of my old self. The version of me that needed agreement to feel solid. The version of me that confused validation with worth. The version of me that believed silence was surrender. That version died without ceremony. In its place stood something sharper, not angry, focused, not loud, certain. I realized this truth, and it settled like a crown on my head. If you don't react, you control the pace. If you don't explain, you control the narrative. If you don't speak, you force others to expose themselves. Silence turns pressure inward. They start scrambling, guessing, overthinking. They replay conversations that never happened. They imagine intentions you never confirmed. They fear moves you haven't made. And you stand still, you breathe, you choose. That is dominance, not the kind that shouts, the kind that doesn't need to. I felt victorious without lifting a hand. No confrontation, no revenge, no dramatic declaration, just a quiet knowing. I had outgrown the need to prove myself. I had stepped into a higher ground where reactions were optional and attention was currency I no longer gave away. Look at yourself. At how quickly you rush to respond, how desperately you try to be clear, how often you bleed words just to feel safe. Ask yourself, who taught you that silence was dangerous? Because the truth is this, silence is terrifying to people who rely on control. When you stop speaking, you stop feeding them. When you stop reacting, you starve their influence. When you stop explaining, you reclaim your authority. I didn't become invisible. I became unreadable. And unreadable is powerful. Unpredictable is powerful. Unbothered is powerful. I no longer announce my thoughts. I no longer broadcast my plans. I no longer offer comfort to those who never earned it. My silence speaks now. It says, I am not rushed. I am not shaken. I am not here to be decoded. They feel it. They feel it when conversations die faster around me. They feel it when their provocations land nowhere. They feel it when their words echo back unanswered. That discomfort, that's the sound of lost control. And I don't need to enjoy it. I just acknowledge it, because power doesn't celebrate. Power simply exists. This was the moment of clarity, the moment I understood that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest, that the calmest presence is often the most dangerous. That silence, wielded intentionally, is not absence. It is command. I don't speak to be heard anymore. I speak when it matters. And until then, I watch, I wait. I decide. Let them mistake my quiet for mercy. Let them assume hesitation. Let them believe I am still the same. Silence gives me time, and time sharpens everything. This is not retreat. This is not fear. This is the highest form of control, and once you understand it, you never go back. Because when you master silence, the world starts listening. Preparation for the final warning silence changed shape. It stopped being patience, stopped being restraint, stopped being mercy. It became a signal, a low hum beneath the surface. A pressure drop before the storm. The moment animals sense danger and don't know why. I didn't announce it, that's the point. Warnings shouted are ignored. Warnings whispered are underestimated. But a warning felt, that stays. I let the silence stretch longer than comfort allowed, longer than politeness permitted, longer than anyone expected. They noticed. Of course they did. People always notice when the noise disappears. They asked questions they never wanted answered. They checked for reactions that never came. They waited for the version of me that used to explain. That version never returned. This wasn't absence, this was preparation. Because silence, when chosen deliberately, is a countdown. I stopped correcting lies, stopped defending intentions, stopped smoothing edges to make others comfortable. Not out of weakness, out of precision. Every unanswered message became weight. Every unreturned glance became tension. Every calm breath became a warning they couldn't decode. They felt it before they understood it. The room felt heavier when I entered. Conversations changed direction. Laughter cut short, not because I threatened anything, but because certainty is louder than aggression. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger leaks. This was colder, cleaner. This was the kind of calm that tells the world something irreversible is coming. I watched them grow uneasy. They searched my face for signs, my voice for cracks, my posture for permission. They found none. And in that absence, their imagination did the work for me. Silence doesn't just withhold answers, it forces questions. What does he know? What is he planning? Why isn't he reacting? Fear thrives in unanswered space, and I gave them plenty. I wasn't hiding, I was loading. Every day of restraint sharpened my resolve. Every ignored provocation hardened my spine. Every swallowed response forged discipline. I learned something dangerous during that time. Most people mistake peace for passivity. They don't recognize preparation when it's quiet. They don't understand that the most decisive moves are made long before impact. I let them keep underestimating, because underestimation is a gift. It makes people careless. It makes them loud. It makes them expose themselves. And while they talked, I aligned, I clarified, I decided. Silence stripped away doubt. There was no one left to impress, no one left to convince, no one left to please, just intention, pure, undiluted. Uncompromising. This was the final warning, even if they didn't know it yet. The last calm before consequence. The last chance to step back without being pushed. I didn't threaten. Threats are negotiations. I simply changed, and that change echoed. They felt it when I stopped chasing closure, when I stopped seeking acknowledgement, when I stopped caring whether they understood. Understanding is optional. Impact is not. My silence spoke differently now. It said, I am done explaining. I am done waiting. I am done bending. It wasn't rage, it was resolve, the kind that doesn't raise its voice, the kind that doesn't argue, the kind that moves when the time is exact. I could feel the moment approaching, not with excitement, with inevitability, like gravity, like nightfall. This wasn't about revenge. Revenge is emotional. This was alignment. Everything I had endured, everything I had observed, everything I had learned in quiet, all of it converging. Silence taught me timing. It taught me patience without hesitation, control without cruelty, strength without spectacle. And now silence wasn't hiding my intentions anymore, it was sharpening them. They mistook my stillness for hesitation. That was their final error, because hesitation fidgets, hesitation leaks, hesitation seeks reassurance. This silence did none of that. This silence waited. And waiting, when chosen, is terrifying. I didn't need them to fear me. I needed them to feel the shift, to sense that something had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed, to realize too late that the quiet wasn't confusion, it was a closing door. I was no longer reacting to the world. The world was adjusting to me. And when the moment comes, when silence finally breaks, it won't be loud, it won't be chaotic, it will be decisive. Because this silence, this was the warning, not spoken, not written, felt. And once a warning is felt, there is no pretending you didn't know. Observing the weak, others shrink. Something changed the moment I stopped carrying their expectations. The world didn't announce it. It reacted. People do that when the balance shifts. They grow quieter, smaller, careful in ways they never were before. I saw it in their eyes first. That flicker of uncertainty, that pause before they spoke, that instinctive recalculation. They used to look through me. Now they look at me, as if trying to measure a shadow whose source they can't see. I didn't raise my voice, didn't flex authority, didn't demand space. And yet space opened. Fear does that. It moves before words ever do. They felt it when I entered, the subtle tightening, the instinct to step aside. Predators don't chase. Prey senses them coming. I watched the confident grow cautious, the loud grow selective, the arrogant grow polite, not because I threatened them, but because something in me stopped asking. People can smell need. They can smell hunger for approval, for validation, for belonging. And they can smell when it's gone. When I stopped seeking permission, they started seeking safety. They talked less around me, not out of respect, out of uncertainty. Uncertainty is the first crack, because when people don't know where they stand with you, they imagine the worst. And imagination is crueler than reality. I noticed how conversations shifted direction, how jokes softened, how insults stayed unspoken, how eyes checked the room before mouths opened. They were no longer sure of the rules. And rules only exist as long as everyone agrees to them. I didn't break the rules, I outgrew them. That's what frightened them. A predator doesn't need to bare teeth, its presence is enough. I watched them second-guess themselves. They wondered if I was angry, if I was planning, if I was judging. The truth was simpler. I was aware. Awareness is dangerous because it sees through patterns people think are hidden. I saw who relied on noise to feel powerful, who relied on crowds to feel brave, who relied on distraction to avoid accountability. And without saying a word, I let them feel seen. Seen people shrink. They fold inward. They hesitate. They reveal themselves through nervous movement and unnecessary speech. I didn't interrogate. Silence interrogated for me. Every extra word they spoke was a confession. Every forced laugh was an admission. They filled the space I left empty, desperate to control the narrative. But narratives collapse when no one responds. I could feel the hierarchy shifting, not because I climbed, because they slipped. Power is relative. When one presence grows solid, others suddenly feel hollow. I noticed how often they checked my reaction. A glance, a pause, a question disguised as confidence. They wanted reassurance. They didn't get it. Reassurance creates dependency. Uncertainty creates obedience. The world felt smaller around me, not in size, in courage. People moved like prey that sensed the forest had teeth again. Careful steps. Quick looks over the shoulder. Voices lowered. They remembered instincts they thought civilization had erased. That's what real power does. It awakens something ancient. I didn't dominate through force. Force is inefficient. I dominated through gravity. Everything leaned toward me without understanding why. I didn't need to expose weakness. Weakness exposed itself. People tripped over their own words, contradicted themselves, over-explained. The strong don't over-explain. Only those afraid of being misunderstood do. I watched fear masquerade as politeness, as cooperation, as respect, and I accepted it without comment, because fear doesn't need acknowledgement, it needs direction. They began to assume I knew more than I said. They were right. They assumed I was always watching. They weren't wrong, but not in the way they thought. I wasn't tracking their movements. I was measuring their collapse. Predators don't rush the kill. They observe the moment prey realizes escape is unlikely. That moment when panic turns inward. That moment when strength drains from the limbs. I saw that moment in them, again and again. The bravest among them tried to challenge the shift. They tested boundaries with jokes, with sarcasm, with subtle defiance. And when nothing happened, when I didn't react, they panicked more. Because resistance only works if it's acknowledged. Ignored defiance becomes humiliation. And humiliation is devastating. They started policing each other, correcting tone, changing subjects, lowering voices. Power doesn't need to speak. It teaches others how to behave without instruction. I felt it then, that unmistakable pivot. I was no longer reacting to the world. The world was orienting itself around me, not because I demanded dominance, but because dominance had settled into my posture, into my silence, into my certainty. Predators don't announce themselves kings. They simply take the territory, and suddenly everything else knows where it stands. Below. I didn't enjoy their fear. That would be weakness. I understood it. Fear is recognition, recognition of imbalance, recognition of inevitability. They finally saw what they had been standing next to all along, something patient, something watching, something that didn't need to prove it belonged at the top, because it had already arrived. And as they shrank, as their confidence fractured, I didn't grow louder, I grew stiller. Because when others shrink, it means you no longer have to. And that's when dominance becomes undeniable. Let them guess, let them break. I learned something dangerous the day I stopped explaining myself. Confusion hurts more than truth ever could. Truth gives people edges to grip. Confusion leaves them slipping, so I gave them nothing. No clarification, no reassurance, no defense, just silence sharp enough to cut. They asked questions. I didn't answer. They accused. I didn't deny. They speculated, whispered, built entire stories in the dark. I watched them exhaust themselves, because when people don't know your intentions, they project their fears onto you. And fear is the most obedient servant alive. Let them guess. Guessing fractures the mind. One thought becomes 10, 10 become 100. Every possibility feels like a threat. I didn't need to intimidate. Their imagination did it for me. They tried to provoke a reaction, a glance, a smirk, a carefully placed insult. I gave them nothing, no spark. And without a spark, fire turns inward. They started replaying every interaction we'd ever had, searching for clues, hidden meanings, signs they'd missed. People break themselves when they believe they're behind. I let them. Silence is surgical. It doesn't rage. It doesn't rush. It removes things cleanly, piece by piece. First, their confidence. They used to speak freely. Now they chose words like stepping through glass. Second, their unity. When no one knows what you're thinking, they turn on each other. Did you notice how he looked at you? What if this is about you? Maybe we should be careful. Fear isolates, and isolation destroys alliances. Third, their sleep. Uncertainty follows people into the dark. It keeps them awake. It rewinds conversations. It asks questions without answers. I was calm. They were unraveling. That's how you know power has shifted. I didn't correct the lies they told themselves. Why would I? A lie believed with fear is more effective than any truth spoken calmly. They wondered if I was planning something. They wondered if I knew something they didn't. They wondered if the silence meant mercy or something worse. I let all options remain alive because hope and dread together create paralysis. They couldn't act. They couldn't confront. They couldn't relax. They hovered in that fragile space between panic and denial, exactly where I wanted them. I didn't weaponize words. I removed them. Without explanation, people lose their footing. They can't tell where they stand. They can't tell if they're forgiven or condemned, so they overcompensate. They offer loyalty they never meant, apologies they don't understand, respect they never had, all unprompted, all unearned. I didn't accept or reject. I observed. Silence doesn't need approval. It only needs patience. I watched leaders stumble. Accustomed to being heard, they withered when ignored. Ignored authority feels ridiculous. Power fades fast when no one reacts. They tried to reassert control. Louder voices. Bolder gestures. Desperation always leaks. They looked foolish. They didn't realize it yet. Others did. That's how reputations die, not with attack, with absence. I didn't confront lies. I let them spread until they contradicted each other. When stories don't match, trust collapses, and once trust collapses, control follows. They begged indirectly. Through favors, through politeness, through just checking in. I gave them nothing, not cruelty, not kindness. Nothing is worse. Nothing leaves no angle of attack. Nothing forces people to sit with themselves, and most people can't stand the company. They tried to define me. Cold, arrogant, dangerous. I didn't correct them. Labels are cages people build for themselves. Once they believe you're dangerous, they act accordingly. They step carefully. They limit risk. They expose less. They make mistakes slower. I didn't become a monster. I let them decide I was one. There's a difference. One is performance. The other is control. I spoke when it mattered, rarely, precisely. A sentence dropped like a scalpel, enough to remind them I could speak, but chose not to. Choice is terrifying. They realized then that the silence wasn't confusion, it was judgment withheld. And judgment withheld feels heavier than judgment delivered. They broke in stages. First, nervous humor, then over politeness, then quiet resentment, finally submission masked as respect. All without me lifting a hand. That's the elegance of it. Cruelty without fingerprints. Precision without noise. I didn't raise my voice. I lowered theirs. I didn't chase dominance. I let uncertainty erode resistance. Let them guess. Let them overthink. Let them exhaust themselves trying to decode someone who refuses to be decoded. Because when people can't read you, they fear you. And when they fear you, they break, not all at once, slowly, silently. Exactly the way power should work. The world listens. Finally, do you feel that? That hush settling over the room. The pause that wasn't there yesterday. The shift that no one dared to name. I don't speak to be heard. I speak to make them listen. And now they do. They lean forward without realizing it. They study my face. They measure my breath. They weigh each word before it leaves my lips. I have taught them restraint, without a single scream, without a single threat, without raising my hand. Silence has teeth. It bites deeper than any shout. It lingers longer than any anger. I was patient. I let them think I was fragile. I let them believe I waited. I let them imagine they were the masters of the moment. All the while I was watching, learning, biding my time, sharpening the edges of my influence. They thought the quiet was weakness. They believed hesitation meant fear. They assumed compliance meant subservience. They were wrong. Every glance they gave me, every judgment they whispered behind my back became part of my design. And now the design is complete. I speak. And the world listens, not because I demanded it, not because I begged for it, because I made them realize something they can't deny. Control is not given, respect is not asked for, power is recognized eventually. I was the storm they ignored. I was the shadow behind their every certainty. I was the question that kept them awake at night. Now they acknowledge it, not with words, not with applause, with awareness, with the quiet tremor that comes when they finally understand their position. I have mastered perception. They believe they see me. They believe they know me. And in their belief, they underestimate nothing, because to truly know me is to fear me. I didn't raise my voice to command attention. I didn't step forward to demand obedience. I let absence teach them. I let hesitation teach them. I let silence demonstrate my dominance. Every pause, every unreadable expression, every delay in movement, calculated. Every moment they wondered, what is he thinking? What will he do next? Deliberate, I orchestrated uncertainty. I sculpted it carefully until every gaze is drawn to me, until every mind bends toward my presence, and they obey silently, subconsciously. They honor me not out of kindness, not out of loyalty, but out of recognition. Recognition that I am the one who decides. Recognition that I am the one who acts. Recognition that the world is smaller when I choose to occupy it. I don't break people with force. I break expectation. I break predictability. I break the illusion that they were ever in control, and now they know. There is no escape from attention once you command it. There is no ignoring what refuses to bend. There is no dismissing a presence that refuses to yield. I speak. And they listen, not because I am loud, not because I am violent, because I am inevitable. Every pause, every glance, every silence leading to this moment, strategic. The world finally pays attention. Because it realizes that silence, wielded like a blade, cannot be ignored. I have drawn lines without a finger raised. I have struck without a hand moved. I have dominated without noise. They thought they understood me. They believed they could predict me. They imagined their schemes would go unchallenged. Now the illusion is gone. They have been forced to observe, forced to measure, forced to reckon. And I remain unmoved, calm, patient, knowing the tide has turned. I do not shout, and yet every mind is tuned to me. I do not threaten, and yet every action I take carries weight. I do not prove, and yet my existence is proof enough, because power is not in explanation. Power is in perception. Power is in the quiet that precedes action. I was the question, the doubt, the shadow. Now I am the answer, and the world listens. Finally, it is not respect they give. It is acknowledgement. It is awareness. It is the slow, inevitable submission that comes when you have mastered the silence and used it to shape reality itself. I do not need to raise my voice. I do not need to strike. I do not need their approval. They have learned too late that silence is not weakness, it is power, and I am its master, the pause, the stillness, the quiet that hangs heavy in the air. It is mine. It bends them. It molds them. It teaches them they are small and I am vast. The world finally listens, not because it must, but because it cannot do otherwise. Every eye, every thought, every expectation drawn into the orbit of my presence. Every plan, every scheme, every whispered calculation, subject to me. I do not demand attention. I do not seek validation. I do not beg for notice. I claim it, quietly, relentlessly, unapologetically. Because when silence becomes deliberate, deliberate becomes dominance. And dominance is absolute. Look at them. The eyes that once overlooked me. The mouths that once whispered lies. The hands that once tried to shape me, now empty, now cautious, now restrained, because they understand, and I smile quietly, not for triumph, not for vengeance, not for recognition, but for inevitability, the silence that taught, the stillness that commanded, the pause that shaped reality. The world listens, finally, and I remain the one who decides when the quiet ends. When the world bends, I am ready. Until then, I let them guess. I let them tremble. I let them understand, piece by piece, that nothing, absolutely nothing, moves without me noticing. I am the calm before the storm. I am the shadow in the corner of every thought. I am the silence that speaks louder than any scream. And now the world listens, finally. I took what they denied me. They said no. They said wait. They said someday. They said earn it through obedience. They said I was asking for too much, so I stopped asking. I remember the weight of denial, the way it pressed on my chest. The way it taught me silence before it taught me strength. The way it tried to convince me that limits were laws. They weren't laws. They were permissions they never intended to grant. I learned that slowly, painfully. One closed door at a time. They denied me respect. They denied me space. They denied me recognition, not because I lacked worth, but because acknowledging my worth threatened theirs. Look at yourself. Look at every time they told you to stay in your place. Look at every time they praised your patience while stealing your future. That wasn't guidance, that was control. And control only survives when you believe it. I believed it once. I won't pretend otherwise. I waited. I hoped. I followed rules written by hands that never intended to reward me until the realization hit. Nothing is given to those who kneel. Nothing is saved for the quiet. Nothing is reserved for the obedient. So I stood, not loudly, not dramatically, but permanently. I stopped asking permission to exist at full volume. I stopped negotiating my value. I stopped shrinking to fit their comfort. And when I reached for what they denied me, I didn't take it with anger. I took it with certainty. Because certainty terrifies those who rely on your doubt. I took back my time. Every second they wasted with false promises. Every hour they convinced me patience was virtue when it was really delay. I took back my voice, not to shout, but to speak without apology. I took back my ambition, the part of me they labeled dangerous. The hunger they tried to shame out of me. They called it arrogance. I call it ownership. They said I was changing. They were right. I was no longer willing to starve so they could feel full. I took what they denied me because it was never theirs to withhold. Confidence, authority, direction. I took command of my own name, and when I did, something shifted. They looked at me differently, not with approval, with confusion, with discomfort. Because I no longer needed them. Understand this. The most dangerous moment is when someone realizes they don't need permission anymore. That's when empires crack. That's when systems tremble. That's when quiet people become unavoidable. I didn't steal. I reclaimed. I reclaimed my right to want more, my right to take space, my right to decide what I am worth. I stopped explaining myself, stopped defending my hunger, stopped justifying my growth. Let them misunderstand. Let them whisper. Let them rewrite the story so they don't have to face the truth. The truth is simpler. I outgrew the cage they called opportunity. I took power without asking if it made them comfortable. I took authority without checking if it fit their rules. I took ownership without waiting for validation. And the moment I did, the world changed shape. It didn't become kinder. It didn't become fair. It became honest, because now I see it clearly. Power respects movement, not intention, not potential. Action. I moved, they hesitated. That was the difference. I crossed lines they were afraid to approach. I spoke truths they were trained to avoid. I made decisions without consensus, not recklessly, decisively. I learned that hesitation feeds regret. And regret is the favorite weapon of those who never act. I refuse to live apologizing for my evolution. I refuse to carry guilt for becoming sharper, stronger, more precise. I took what they denied me and I made it mine, fully, completely, without return policy. This is self-ownership, not borrowed confidence, not temporary dominance, permanent authority over my direction. I do not wait for doors to open. I do not knock. I do not beg. If there is no door, I build my own path. And when they ask how I did it, I don't explain, because explanation is a gift, and I've given enough away already. They see the result now. The posture, the calm, the unshakable certainty. This didn't come from approval. It came from refusal, refusal to stay small. Refusal to obey fear. Refusal to live another life defined by denial. Look at yourself again. Look at what they told you wasn't for you, the success, the influence, the power. Ask yourself one question: who decided that? Because if it wasn't you, it can be undone. I am not reckless. I am resolved. I am not cruel. I am exact. I am not arrogant. I am finished asking. They denied me once. They won't get the chance again. I took what was mine. I built it with my hands. I defended it with my spine. And I stand in it now, unapologetic, unyielding, undeniable. This is the moment you stop waiting. This is the moment you stop hoping. This is the moment you take ownership of your future, not tomorrow, not someday, now, because power doesn't respond to patience. It responds to presence, and I am here. The moment of calm control. There was a time when my voice shook, when silence felt like surrender. When every pause was mistaken for fear. That time is over. Now silence bends the room. Listen closely, not to what I say, to what I no longer need to say, because power reaches its final form when it stops announcing itself. I remember when I had to explain my pain, explain my intentions, explain why I would not stay small, quiet, manageable. I remember how exhausting that was, how begging wears the soul thin, how justification slowly erases identity. That was before control, before clarity. Before I understood that the loudest presence in the room is often the one saying nothing at all. Look at them now. Look at how they hesitate, how their words stumble, how their confidence evaporates the moment I choose not to respond. That is not coincidence. That is conditioning reversed. They were trained to speak. I was trained to endure, and endurance becomes dominance when it no longer needs witnesses. Silence used to scare me, because silence meant abandonment. Silence meant dismissal. Now silence is my weapon, because silence forces imagination to do the work. And imagination is crueler than any threat I could ever speak aloud. I don't interrupt anymore. I don't rush to fill the gaps. I don't chase validation through volume. I wait. And waiting breaks them. You can feel it, can't you? That subtle shift. That tightening in the chest when someone doesn't react the way you expect. They expect anger. They expect noise. They expect resistance. They don't know what to do with calm certainty. Calm control dismantles egos because anger can be challenged. Fear can be exploited. Noise can be ignored. But calm unsettles. Calm suggests preparation. Calm implies inevitability. When I stop speaking, they start doubting. When I stop reacting, they start unraveling. That's when dominance becomes psychological. I don't need to threaten consequences. They feel them approaching on their own. I don't need to declare my strength. It leaks into the room through posture alone. This is what happens when you survive long enough to stop proving. Every scar taught me restraint. Every betrayal refined my patience. Every loss trained me to conserve energy. Now I choose where my attention goes and where it doesn't. Attention is power, silence is selection, and I select nothing that does not serve me. They talk louder now. Have you noticed? They over-explain, over-promise, over-perform, because silence exposes insecurity. They need reassurance. I need nothing. That imbalance is everything. I used to think dominance meant pressure, force, aggression. I was wrong. True dominance is when your absence of reaction controls the outcome. When your stillness makes others reveal themselves. Watch them. They will confess without being asked. They will show their fear by filling the quiet. They will betray their weakness by trying to reclaim control. And I will simply stand there, unmoved, unrushed, because control is not urgency. Control is patience sharpened to a blade. This calm wasn't born overnight. It was forged in chaos, honed in betrayal, polished by disappointment. Every time I wanted to scream but didn't. Every time I wanted revenge but waited. Every time I chose composure over collapse. Those moments stacked. They hardened until silence became instinct. Now when I look at the world, it feels slower, smaller, predictable, because calm control grants perspective. I see reactions before they happen. I hear panic hiding behind confidence. I recognize desperation masked as authority. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is not mercy. This is mastery. I no longer need to dominate physically. Psychological certainty is far more efficient. They already know, even if they won't admit it. They feel the shift. They sense the gravity. They know the balance has changed. And the most terrifying part, I didn't announce it. There was no declaration, no warning, no dramatic turning point. Just one day I stopped needing to react. That's when it happened. That's when control became permanent. Understand this. Anyone can shout, anyone can threaten, anyone can posture. Few can remain calm when they hold the advantage. Calm is confidence without noise. Calm is certainty without spectacle. Calm is knowing you've already won. This is the moment they realize it too, when the room goes quiet, when eyes linger a second too long, when voices lower instinctively. That's not respect. That's recognition. Recognition that the fight is no longer external. It's already over inside their minds. I don't smile, I don't gloat, I don't chase satisfaction. I let silence do what it does best. It reminds them of everything they underestimated, of every boundary they crossed, of every warning they ignored. Silence remembers, and now so do they. This is calm control, chilling, inevitable, unforgettable. And once you reach it, you never raise your voice again. The world never changed. The world didn't betray me. It didn't suddenly turn cruel. It didn't wake up one day and decide to test me. The world stayed exactly as it always was, sharp, indifferent, hungry. I was the one who changed. I used to believe the world owed me fairness. That effort should be rewarded. That pain should be acknowledged. That endurance should be respected. I believed that if I stayed good long enough, if I stayed quiet long enough, if I stayed patient long enough, the world would soften. It never does. And that realization didn't make me angry. It made me free. Because once you stop demanding mercy from a merciless system, you stop bleeding disappointment. I don't resent the world. I outgrew it. I see it clearly now. The patterns, the cycles, the predictable cruelty disguised as order. Nothing changed out there. The rules were always written in pressure. The rewards were always reserved for those willing to take. The respect was always given to certainty, not kindness. I was simply late to the truth, and late does not mean lost. It means forged. There was a version of me that begged for understanding, that tried to translate pain into something palatable, that softened my edges so others could stay comfortable. That version is gone, not destroyed, completed. I don't hate who I was. I needed that softness to learn contrast. Steel only knows its strength because it once bent. The world kept testing me the same way. Over and over, it whispered, "Will you break this time?" And every time I adapted, I stopped reacting emotionally. I stopped expecting fairness. I stopped hoping for rescue. Hope was replaced by clarity, and clarity is far more dangerous. Now I look at the world with calm superiority, not arrogance, perspective. I know what it is capable of, and I know what I am capable of surviving. That difference is everything. I no longer take things personally. Personal pain is a luxury of the unprepared. This is not bitterness speaking. Bitterness is loud. This is quiet. This is acceptance sharpened into control. The world still lies, still exploits, still rewards confidence over conscience. And I no longer argue with that reality. I master it. There was a time when injustice kept me awake, when betrayal echoed in my chest, when disrespect felt like a personal wound. Now it feels like data, information, signals revealing who understands power and who is merely pretending to hold it. I don't rush to correct anyone anymore. I let them reveal themselves. Time does the exposing, silence does the sorting, and I stand above the outcome untouched. That's the difference. I don't win arguments. I outlast relevance. I don't chase influence. I become unavoidable. The world doesn't need to change when you stop needing its approval. That was the final shift. The moment I realized I had been measuring myself against a system that rewards noise, not depth. So I removed myself from the comparison. Now I measure myself against inevitability. Am I steady? Am I controlled? Am I advancing without announcing it? Yes, then the world can keep spinning exactly as it is. I will not be dragged by it. I walk through chaos untouched because chaos no longer surprises me. I have lived in uncertainty long enough to make peace with instability, and peace is power. The world didn't make me harder, it made me clearer. I know when to move, I know when to wait. I know when silence will do more damage than any confrontation ever could. That knowledge is irreversible. I don't feel the need to dominate openly. Open dominance invites challenge. Quiet authority invites surrender. People sense it before they understand it. They adjust their tone, their posture, their expectations, not because I demand it, because certainty radiates. This is what internal victory looks like. No applause, no validation, no public moment of recognition, just a calm awareness that nothing external can destabilize me now. I've already survived the worst version of myself. The world has nothing left to threaten me with. Loss, I've adapted. Rejection, I've transcended it. Isolation, I turned it into discipline. Every weapon the world once used against me is now part of my structure. That's not resentment. That's evolution. I don't seek revenge on the world. Revenge implies emotional dependence. I seek mastery, and mastery doesn't shout. It moves quietly, decisively, without hesitation. The world never noticed when the balance shifted. That's the irony. It kept treating me the same way, applying the same pressure, expecting the same cracks. And one day it realized the pressure stopped working. That's when things changed, not because the world evolved, but because I did. I don't stand against the world. I stand beyond it, observing, calculating, advancing, and the most dangerous part, I'm completely at peace. No anger fueling me, no desperation driving me, no need to prove anything to anyone, just controlled momentum. The kind that doesn't stop, the kind that doesn't announce itself, the kind that arrives only after it's too late to resist. The world never changed. I did. No more explanations. I used to explain myself. Every decision, every silence, every refusal. I used to believe clarity was kindness. That if I spoke enough, if I justified enough, if I softened my truth enough, they would finally understand. They never did. Because understanding was never the goal, control was, and explanations were the leash. So listen carefully. This is where that version of me ends. No more explanations. Not because I am confused, not because I lack direction, not because I fear judgment, but because I am finished negotiating my existence. There was a time I felt guilty for choosing myself, for prioritizing strength over comfort, for walking away without offering closure. That guilt was trained into me, a reflex, a weakness disguised as morality. I see it now. They didn't want honesty. They wanted access. They didn't want understanding. They wanted leverage. And every explanation I gave was another handle they could grip. Another opening, another weakness. So I closed the door, silently, permanently. This is the severing. The clean cut between who I was and who I am willing to be. No dramatic farewell, no emotional confession, no final plea to be seen, just absence. And absence terrifies people more than confrontation ever could, because absence offers no argument, no angle, no point of attack. It simply stands, unmovable. I don't owe anyone a reason for choosing my own power. I don't owe anyone comfort for decisions that saved me. I don't owe anyone access to a version of me that no longer exists. That version paid the price already. That version bled, waited, endured. That version begged the world to be fair. I buried them quietly, and I did not look back. You feel the shift, don't you? That discomfort, that tension. It's not anger you're sensing. It's boundary, pure, absolute. Boundaries don't explain themselves. They enforce themselves. I don't need to convince you. I don't need to persuade you. I don't need to soften the truth so it sits better in your hands. My truth is not fragile. If it cuts you, that is not my responsibility. There was a time I believed being understood was the same as being respected. That was a lie. Respect comes from consistency, from decisiveness, from knowing exactly where someone ends and refusing to cross that line. I am no longer flexible where it matters. That scares people. They call it cold. They call it distant. They call it arrogance. Let them. Labels are the last defense of those who lost influence. I don't correct them anymore. Correction implies concern. I have none to spare. This is what growth looks like when it stops asking permission. This is what healing becomes when it evolves into authority. I am not angry. I am not resentful. I am not seeking revenge. Those emotions are noisy. I am quiet now. And quiet decisions echo the longest. Every explanation I withheld taught me something important. Those who mattered adjusted. Those who didn't revealed themselves. Silence sorted them better than words ever did. So I stopped talking, not out of fear, out of precision. Every word you give away is a piece of power released. I am done releasing power to people who never carried its weight. You don't get access to my reasoning. You don't get insight into my motives. You don't get closure packaged neatly so you can sleep better at night. I chose myself. That is the only explanation that will ever exist. And if that is not enough for you, then you were never meant to walk this far with me. This is the final boundary, not shouted, not announced, enforced. I no longer explain why I left. I no longer explain why I changed. I no longer explain why I refuse to be available in the ways I once was. Explanations are bridges, and I burn them on purpose, because some people don't deserve passage. I am not here to be understood by everyone. I am here to be undeniable to myself. That is the trade. and I accepted it fully. If you feel confused, good. Confusion means you no longer control the narrative. If you feel uneasy, good. Unease means the old access is gone. If you feel shut out, that's because you are, and that door will not open again. No more explanations, no more emotional labor, no more self-betrayal disguised as patience, no more clarity offered to those who only listen to exploit it. This is the line, and I stand on my side of it without apology. I don't need to justify my silence. My silence justifies itself. I don't need to announce my strength. You can feel it in the absence of words. This is not withdrawal. This is command. This is the moment I stopped asking to be understood and started deciding what deserves my presence. And once that choice is made, there is nothing left to explain. This is my silence. This is my throne. I did not arrive here by chance. I did not inherit this position. I did not beg, borrow, or steal my way into power. I built it, brick by brick, scar by scar, silence by silence. This is my silence. And this is my throne. Do you understand what a throne really is? It is not gold. It is not applause. It is not a crown placed gently on a bowed head. A throne is weight. It is the pressure of knowing every move is watched, every absence noticed, every word measured. And I learned something long ago. Words are optional. Presence is not. I sit here without sitting. I rule without ruling. I command without raising my voice. Because real power does not announce itself. It waits. I used to chase recognition. I wanted to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be validated by eyes that never truly looked at me. That was my apprenticeship. Every dismissal sharpened me. Every insult tempered me. Every betrayal stripped away illusion, until all that remained was clarity. And clarity does not speak loudly. Clarity watches. They expected rage. They expected collapse. They expected noise. What they got was quiet, and quiet unnerves them, because quiet cannot be predicted. It cannot be provoked. It cannot be baited into mistakes. Silence does not flinch. I became a king without a crown the moment I stopped asking for permission to exist. No coronation, no ceremony, just a decision. A decision to stand unmoved while the world spun itself into confusion around me. I learned that crowns attract thieves. But thrones built from silence attract only fear. Look closely. They circle me now, not boldly, not confidently. They circle like prey trying to convince itself the predator is gone. They whisper my name when they think I cannot hear. They watch my absence more closely than my presence ever was. That is legacy forming in real time. Legacy is not what you say about yourself. It is what others cannot stop saying when you are gone. I did not need to conquer cities. I did not need to burn kingdoms. I conquered perception. I conquered access. I conquered the version of myself that needed approval to feel real. And that conquest was total. This throne does not creak. It does not wobble. It does not need defending because it is not built on opinion. It is built on inevitability. People feel it before they understand it. A shift in the air, a hesitation before they speak. A second thought where confidence used to live. That is my silence working. I do not react. I do not explain. I do not rush. Time bends toward those who do not chase it. I let them exhaust themselves trying to read me, trying to provoke me, trying to regain control they once thought they had. Control is a funny thing. The moment you stop fighting for it, it starts obeying you. I no longer need to prove I belong at the table. I am the reason the table feels smaller. I am the unspoken standard, the unchallenged presence, the weight in the room that shifts conversations without entering them. This is kingship in its purest form. No spectacle, no vanity, no applause addiction, just command. I did not silence myself to disappear. I silenced myself to ascend. And from here, everything looks different, smaller. The chaos that once intimidated me now feels distant, predictable, almost boring. I see patterns where others see threats. I see weakness where others see noise, and I do not interfere. A king does not swat flies. A king waits. They will come eventually. Confused. Humbled, looking for answers I will never give them, because answers keep people dependent. Silence makes them adapt or break. Either outcome serves me. This throne does not demand loyalty. It inspires caution, and caution is more reliable than love. Love fades, fear evolves, respect born from silence endures. I am not here to be remembered fondly. I am here to be remembered inevitably. As the moment things changed, as the presence that could not be ignored. As the quiet authority that never had to announce itself. This is not the end of my story. This is the point where the story no longer needs narration. I sit here unseen, unbothered, unchallenged. My silenceoning is not dramatic. It is permanent. This is my silence. And this is my throne. I took the power back, I took it back. Not with noise, not with fury, not with pleas or protests or the hollow rituals of those who never understood. I took it back, and they didn't see it coming. Because they never expected a storm that spoke only in silence. Power is a strange thing. It cannot be begged. It cannot be borrowed. It cannot be borrowed without leaving debt. It can only be seized, and I seized mine, brick by brick, moment by moment, choice by choice. I stopped waiting for permission. I stopped asking for validation. I stopped measuring my worth by their trembling hands or their empty approval. I simply took it. They thought they owned the maps. They thought they drew the boundaries. They thought they wrote the rules. I erased every line they ever drew. I redrew the world in silence. I redrew it in inevitability. And in that silence, I became absolute. Do you feel it? The shift beneath your feet, the hesitation in your breath. The world bending slightly, almost imperceptibly, towards someone who never asked to be seen. That is me. I moved through their chaos unshaken, unprovoked, unclaimed by fear. And it worked. Every doubt they planted, I watered with patience. Every insult I absorbed and made stronger. Every expectation they placed on me, I left unfulfilled, not out of defiance, but because I understood the weight of restraint. Power is quiet. It is calm. It is inevitable. And the world, for all its noise, cannot withstand inevitability. They tried to understand me. They tried to bend me. They tried to break me. But breaking is an action that requires a point of impact. I became the surface that reflects, the void that swallows, the force that doesn't collide but exists anyway. I did not raise my voice. I did not demand their gaze. I simply existed. And in that existence, I reclaimed everything they thought they could deny me. I took back my time. I took back my focus. I took back my narrative. I took back the right to move unchallenged, to act unseen, to decide without interference, to let the world adjust itself around me because I no longer adjusted for it. I stopped explaining, and the world had no choice but to listen. They are quiet now, not out of awe, not out of love, not out of reverence. They are quiet because silence carries weight they cannot lift, because presence without proclamation is heavier than any declaration. I am heavier. I am the point the needle swings toward even when the clock refuses to tick. I am the shadow across the board, the predator who waits unseen. I am the inevitability they feel before they understand it. And in that inevitability, I am free. No explanations, no apologies, no compromises. Everything they tried to withhold, everything they thought belonged to them, I have claimed. Not violently, not recklessly, but certainly. Because certainty is more terrifying than rage. It does not burn. It does not shout. It simply is. And the world bends because certainty does not negotiate. It does not waver. It does not surrender. I have become that certainty. I moved like a shadow they could not see. I spoke without words they could hear. I acted without waiting for permission, and in the stillness I became the axis upon which they turn. Do not mistake this for vengeance. Do not call it wrath. This is the reclamation of self. This is the return of what was mine all along. I took the power back. And when I did, I realized something extraordinary. I never needed anyone else's recognition. I never needed anyone else's consent. I never needed anyone else's approval. Because power, real power, is ownership. Ownership of choice. Ownership of action. Ownership of silence. I own all of it. I stopped explaining, and the world had no choice but to listen. Every hesitation, every glance, every whispered calculation, I watched it unfold. I did not interfere. I did not speak. Because the world will always respond to the presence it cannot manipulate. And I am that presence. I took it back, slowly, deliberately, inevitable as nightfall. And now it rests in my hands, quiet, unassailable, undeniable. No one can take it from me. No one can dispute it. No one can question it. Because the power belongs to the one who stops explaining, who stops justifying, who stops negotiating with mediocrity and expectation. I belong to myself. And in belonging to myself, the world finally bends, finally listens, finally knows that some things are not asked for, they are claimed. And I claimed mine. I stopped explaining. And the world had no choice but to listen. Silence is my weapon, presence is my throne, ownership is my victory, and the world finally cannot ignore it. I took the power back, and it was always mine. Closing resonance, let them watch, let them fear, let them remember who I became. Yes, let them remember. For too long I moved in their shadows. For too long I bent to expectation. For too long I whispered apologies that were never meant for me. No more. I stand now unbroken, unshaken, undeniable. Every doubt they planted, every chain they forged, every whisper that sought to diminish me, I turned into fire. I turned into steel. I turned into silence so thick it drowned the noise of 1,000 opinions. And they watched. They always watched, curious, fearful, hungry for mistakes, hungry for weakness. But weakness I never gave them. I became something else entirely, not the one they expected, not the one they imagined. Not the one who pleads or pleads forgiveness. I became the storm that arrives without warning. I became the shadow that moves when no one is looking. I became the force that bends the world without ever asking permission. Let them watch. Yes, let them watch me rise from the ashes of their contempt, from the ruins of their assumptions, from the silence they thought would swallow me whole. I am louder in quiet. I am heavier in stillness. I am inevitable in patience. Do you feel it? The weight of it. The truth that presence alone can unmake them in ways words never could. Let them fear. Fear the one who refuses to react. Fear the one who does not explain. Fear the one who does not bend, who does not crumble, who does not break. Let them fear the quiet domination. Let them fear the gaze that pierces without accusation. Let them fear the power that does not shout because it does not need to. I am that power. They will never understand it. They will never control it. They will never contain it. They can only witness. They can only measure their own fear against the certainty of who I have become. And in that certainty I am free, free from expectation, free from judgment, free from the chains of approval. I am nothing they can claim. I am everything I chose to be. Let them remember. Remember that silence is not submission. Remember that restraint is not weakness. Remember that control does not require violence. Sometimes it only requires presence. Let them remember that I took what they denied me. Let them remember that I rose without asking, without pleading, without hesitation. I carved my path through the ruins of doubt. I walked through the ashes of judgment. I stood on the bones of expectation and declared myself whole. Let them watch. Let them fear. Let them remember who I became. And as they do, let the echoes reach the corners of their minds they thought were safe from influence. Let every glance they steal carry the weight of inevitability. Let every whisper of my name remind them of the power they could not suppress. Let them watch. Let them fear. Let them remember. Because I am the silence they underestimated. I am the storm they never saw. I am the shadow they cannot outrun. I am the force that bends reality not with noise, not with spectacle, but with the quiet, crushing certainty of a presence that refuses to waver. Let them watch. Let them fear. Let them remember who I became. And in that remembrance I exist, unapologetic, unyielding, unstoppable. I am the culmination of patience. I am the harvest of every slight, every betrayal, every underestimation. I am the embodiment of quiet domination, and they will never forget it. Let them watch. Let them fear. Let them remember who I became, because the world will always bend before a force that refuses to explain itself. The world will always listen to one who has claimed its power. The world will always remember the one who stopped waiting and started commanding. Let them watch, let them fear. Let them remember who I became. I am no longer small. I am no longer timid. I am no longer theirs to understand. I am mine, and in being mine, I am everything. Let them watch, let them fear. Let them remember who I became. I am the final echo. I am the last silence. I am the inevitability they cannot resist, and they will remember always. Let them watch, let them fear. Let them remember, legacy of silence, do you hear it? No, good, that is the point. The world screams, it shouts my name, it trembles, it worries, it fights for attention. And I do nothing. I sit in silence, not because I am weak, not because I am afraid, not because I am still learning. I sit because in silence I am everything. They think I am absent. They think I am idle. They think I am waiting for permission. They think I am small. Let them. Let them believe in their illusions. Let them chase ghosts and shadows, scratching at the walls of a world they cannot understand. I watch, I listen, I wait, every movement, every misstep, every desperate attempt to control the uncontrollable. I see it all, I hear it all, I own it all without lifting a finger. Silence is not empty. Silence is not weak. Silence is the blade that cuts without warning, the shadow that moves while they stumble blindly. The storm they never see coming because they are too busy screaming at the sky. I have learned what they never could. That words are cheap. That promises are hollow. That cries for attention are nothing but whispers in the wind. Power is not declared. Power is felt. Power is endured. Power is silence. And I endure. While chaos rages around me, while the world burns with confusion and fear, I remain still. I remain calm. I remain absolute. Let them panic. Let them argue. Let them fight for scraps of influence, for scraps of understanding. I have long since abandoned the need to compete for their approval. I am the quiet in the center of the storm. I am the calm they cannot touch. I am the presence that bends perception without ever raising a hand. Look at them. Look at the confusion etched in every gesture. Look at the fear that colors every glance. They do not see me yet. They cannot measure what they do not understand. And that is my gift. The world believes in noise. The world worships chaos. The world mistakes volume for value. I do not. I am value. I am measure. I am the one thing they cannot fabricate, cannot replicate, cannot argue against. I am silence. but not the silence of absence, not the silence of submission, not the silence of the powerless. I am silence as power. Every pause I take, every word I withhold, every moment I refuse to react to it is a message. Unspoken, unyielding, unmistakable. Do you feel it? Do you feel the weight of being ignored while everything else collapses? Do you feel the fear of knowing that the one who does not speak controls the outcome anyway? They scramble, they plot, they flail, and I sit, I observe, I smile quietly to myself, because in this silence I am untouchable. I am the storm they cannot anticipate. I am the shadow that waits while they bleed in the light. I am the fire that burns steadily while their flames sputter and die. They call it stillness. I call it legacy. For when I am gone, when my presence leaves this room, this city, this world, they will still feel me. They will still know me. They will still fear me, not because I shouted, not because I raged, not because I fought in their eyes, because I endured, because I waited, because I became the silence they could not survive. Legacy is not made in noise. Legacy is not written in the pages of shallow recognition. Legacy is forged in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when no one is applauding, when no one even notices that it is happening. I notice. I notice every fear. I notice every flaw. I notice every weakness they believe they hide, and I wait. I wait until the moment when the world can no longer ignore me. When every eye turns reluctantly, every voice falters, every heart beats too fast in recognition. Then they will understand. Then they will see what I have always known. Silence is not absence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power, absolute, indestructible, eternal. Do not mistake me. Do not test me. Do not expect me to explain. I need nothing from them. I owe nothing to them. I ask nothing of them. I am beyond their reach. I am beyond their influence. I am beyond their understanding. Let the world burn in confusion. Let the weak tremble in fear. Let the loudest voices drown themselves in the noise they so desperately crave. I will remain calm, unshaken, unbroken, for in this silence I am remembered. In this silence I am feared. In this silence I endure beyond them all. Legacy is not the crown. Legacy is not the throne. Legacy is not the words they whisper after I leave. Legacy is the silence I leave behind. A silence so complete that even in my absence the world bends. Even in my absence the chaos listens. Even in my absence they remember who held the power and who refused to speak of it. Let them watch. Let them scramble. Let them fight. I do not care, for I am calm, for I am enduring, for I am inevitable. And the silence I leave will last far longer than any noise. I am the quiet at the heart of the storm. I am the calm they cannot touch. I am the enduring power that outlives everything else. Let the world scream, I will remain silent, unshakable, unstoppable. I am the legacy of silence. Legacy of silence, do you hear it? No, good, that is exactly the point. The world screams, it shouts, it claws for attention, it trembles in uncertainty. And I do nothing, I sit. I remain, I endure, not because I am small, not because I am weak, not because I fear, because in my silence I am everything. They think I am absent, they think I am idle, they think I am waiting for permission, they think they understand me. They are wrong. Let them believe their illusions, let them chase shadows while the world burns around them. Let them scramble for scraps of control they cannot grasp. I watch, I wait, I listen, I endure every movement, every misstep, every frantic attempt to dominate what is beyond their reach. I see it all. I hear it all, I own it all without lifting a finger. Silence is not empty. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the blade that cuts without warning, the shadow that moves while they stumble blindly, The fire that consumes quietly while they scream in the light. They have never understood. They have never seen it coming. They have never felt it until now. I have learned what they never could. Words are cheap. Promises are hollow. Cries for recognition are empty echoes. Power is not declared. Power is felt. Power is endured. Power is silence. And I endure. While chaos rages, while the world trembles and panics, I remain still. I remain calm. I remain absolute. Let them panic. Let them argue. Let them fracture under their own fear. I am beyond it. I am the quiet at the center of the storm. I am the calm they cannot reach. I am the presence that bends perception without ever raising a hand. Look at them. Look at the fear etched in their gestures. Look at the panic in their eyes. They cannot measure me because they cannot understand me. That is my gift. The world worships noise. The world worships chaos. The world mistakes volume for power. I do not. I am power. I am measure. I am the silent force that controls without speaking. I am silence, but not absence, not submission, not weakness. I am silence as dominance. Every pause, every withheld word, every still moment is a statement, a declaration, an unbreakable truth. Do you feel it? The weight of being ignored while everything else collapses. The terror of knowing the one who does not speak controls the outcome anyway. They scramble, they plot, they fight for attention. And I remain still, I endure, because in this silence I am untouchable. I am the storm they never see. I am the shadow moving unseen. I am the fire that burns steadily while their flames sputter and die. Let them call it stillness. I call it legacy. Legacy is not made in noise. Legacy is not shouted. Legacy is not written in shallow praise. Legacy is forged in the quiet moments when no one watches, when no one applauds, when no one even notices. I notice. I notice every fear. I notice every flaw. I notice every weakness they believe they hide, and I wait. I wait until the moment they can no longer ignore me. When every eye turns reluctantly, every voice falters, every heart beats too fast in recognition, then they will understand. Then they will see what I have always known. Silence is not absence. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is power, absolute, indestructible, eternal. Do not mistake me. Do not test me. Do not expect me to explain. I need nothing. I owe nothing. I ask nothing. I am beyond reach. I am beyond influence. I am beyond comprehension. Let the world scream. Let the weak tremble. Let the loudest voices drown themselves in the chaos they crave. I remain calm, unshaken, unbroken, for in this silence I am remembered. In this silence I am feared. In this silence I endure beyond them all. Legacy is not the crown. Legacy is not the throne. Legacy is not the accolades they whisper after I leave. Legacy is the silence I leave behind. A silence so complete that even in my absence the world bends. Even in my absence chaos listens. Even in my absence they remember who held the power and who refused to speak of it. Let them watch. Let them tremble. Let them crumble. I do not care, for I am calm. For I am enduring, for I am inevitable. And the silence I leave will outlast every word they ever shouted. I am the quiet at the heart of the storm. I am the calm they cannot break. I am the enduring force that survives beyond time. Let the world scream. I will remain silent. Unshakable, unstoppable, I am the legacy of silence, and it lasts forever. Do you hear it? Pause, no, good, that is exactly the point. Pause, the world screams. Pause, it shouts. Short pause, it claws for attention. Pause, it trembles in uncertainty. Long pause, and I do nothing. Emphasize, I do nothing, slowly I sit. Pause, I remain. Pause, I endure. Pause, let it resonate, not because I am small. Short pause, not because I am weak. Short pause, not because I fear. Slight pause before next line because in my silence, slow, heavy emphasis on my silence, I am everything. Pause, let the weight settle, they think I am absent. Pause, they think I am idle. Pause. They think I am waiting for permission. Pause, slow, they think they understand me. Pause, slight emphasis, they are wrong. Pause, cold, cutting, let them. Short pause, let them believe their illusions. Pause, let them chase shadows while the world burns around them. Slightly longer pause, let them scramble for scraps of control they cannot grasp. Pause, let the words sink in, I watch. Pause, I wait. Pause, I listen. Pause, I endure. Emphasize, endure, slowly, lingering, every movement. Short pause. Every misstep. Pause, every frantic attempt to dominate what is beyond their reach. Pause, slightly longer, I see it all. Pause, I hear it all. Pause, I own it all without lifting a finger. Emphasize own, and without lifting a finger, silence is not empty. Pause, silence is not weakness. Pause, silence is the blade that cuts without warning. Slight pause, the shadow that moves while they stumble blindly. Pause, the fire that consumes quietly while they scream in the light. Long pause, let it burn. They have never understood. Pause, they have never seen it coming. Pause, they have never felt it until now. Emphasize until now, I have learned what they never could. Pause, words are cheap. Slight pause, promises are hollow. Pause, cries for recognition are empty echoes. Pause, heavy power is not declared. Pause, power is felt. Emphasize felt, power is endured. Pause, power is silence. Long pause, let it resonate, and I endure. Pause while chaos rages, slight pause. While the world trembles and panics, pause, I remain still. Pause, slow, I remain calm. Pause, I remain absolute. Pause, heavy emphasis, let them panic. Pause, let them argue. Pause, let them fracture under their own fear. Slight pause, I am beyond it. Pause, I am the quiet at the center of the storm. Pause, I am the calm they cannot reach. Pause, I am the presence that bends perception without ever raising a hand. Pause, slow, deliberate, look at them. Pause, look at the fear etched in their gestures. Pause, look at the panic in their eyes. Pause, they cannot measure me because they cannot understand me. Long pause, that is my gift. Pause, the world worships noise. Pause, the world worships chaos. Pause, the world mistakes volume for power. Pause, I do not. Pause, I am power. Pause, slow, I am measure. Pause, I am the silent force that controls without speaking. Long pause, let the gravity hit, I am silence. Pause, emphasis, but not absence. Pause, not submission. Pause, not weakness. Pause. I am silence as dominance. Slow, deliberate every pause. Pause every withheld word. Pause every still moment. Pause is a statement. Pause a declaration. Pause an unbreakable truth. Long pause, do you feel it? Pause the weight of being ignored while everything else collapses. Slight pause, the terror of knowing the one who does not speak controls the outcome anyway. Pause, dramatic, they scramble. Pause, they plot. Pause, they fight for attention. Pause, and I remain still. Pause, I remain. Pause, I endure. Emphasize endure, because in this silence I am untouchable. Pause, slow, I am the storm they never see. Pause, I am the shadow moving unseen. Pause, I am the fire that burns steadily while their flames sputter and die. Long pause, let them call it stillness. Pause, I call it legacy. Pause, slow, final, legacy is not made in noise. Pause, legacy is not shouted. Pause, legacy is not written in shallow praise. Pause, legacy is forged in the quiet moments. Pause. When no one watches, pause. When no one applauds, pause. When no one even notices. Long pause, I notice. Pause, emphasis, I notice every fear. Pause, I notice every flaw. Pause, I notice every weakness they believe they hide. Pause, and I wait. Pause, slow, I wait until the moment they can no longer ignore me. Pause when every eye turns reluctantly. Pause, every voice falters. Pause, every heart beats too fast in recognition. Long pause, then they will understand. Pause. Then they will see what I have always known. Pause, dramatic silence is not absence. Pause, silence is not emptiness. Pause, silence is power. Pause, emphasize absolute, indestructible, eternal. Long, lingering pause, do not mistake me. Pause, do not test me. Pause, do not expect me to explain. Pause, deliberate, I need nothing. Pause, I owe nothing. Pause, I ask nothing. Pause, I am beyond reach. Pause, I am beyond influence. Pause, I am beyond comprehension. Long pause. Let the world scream. Pause, let the weak tremble. Pause, let the loudest voices drown themselves in the chaos they crave. Long pause, I remain. Pause, slow, calm. Pause, unshaken. Pause, unbroken. Long pause, for in this silence I am remembered. Pause, in this silence I am feared. Pause, in this silence I endure beyond them all. Long pause, let them watch. Pause, let them tremble. Pause, let them crumble. Long, slow pause, I do not care. Pause, for I am calm. Pause, for I am enduring. Pause, for I am inevitable. Long, lingering pause, and the silence I leave, pause will outlast every word they ever shouted. Pause, let it echo, I am the quiet at the heart of the storm. Pause, I am the calm they cannot break. Pause, I am the enduring force that survives beyond time. Long pause, let the world scream. Pause, I will remain. Pause, silent. Pause, unshakable. Pause, unstoppable. Long pause, dramatic. I am. Pause, the legacy of silence. Pause, slow, final, and it lasts forever. Pause, reflections on transformation. I remember the fire. Pause, I remember the betrayal. Pause, the sharp edges of words meant to wound. Pause, the cold weight of patience stretched thin, tested to its limits. Pause, they thought I would break. Pause, they thought I would bend. Pause, they thought I would kneel beneath the weight of their contempt. Long pause, let it resonate, but breaking is not in me. Pause, bending is not in me. Pause, I kneel to nothing but the truth I forged myself. Pause, heavy emphasis on truth I forged. Every pain became a teacher. Pause, every betrayal became fuel. Pause, every insult, every rejection, every quiet doubt cast by others. Slight pause, they became my instruments. Pause, I learned patience. Pause, not the kind of patience that waits helplessly. Pause, not the kind of patience that begs for mercy. Pause, but the patient kind that watches. Pause that measures. Pause that calculates every step. Long pause, I learn to grow in the shadows. Pause to thrive in silence. Pause to take what they thought was theirs. Pause and make it mine without them ever noticing. Pause emphasis, I have been forged in fire. Pause, I have been shattered in ways they believed would destroy me. Pause, I have endured storms they thought would drown me. Pause, and yet, pause, here I stand. Pause, unbroken. Pause, unshaken. Pause, unstoppable. Long pause, pain was my teacher. Pause, betrayal was my blueprint. Pause, silence was my strategy. Pause. Every wound carved a map. Pause, every scar marked a victory. Pause, every tear shed watered the roots of my resolve. Pause, do you see me now? Pause, slow, the one who endured it all. Pause, the one they tried to break. Pause, the one they thought would vanish under the weight of their cruelty. Long pause, I did not vanish. Pause, I became more. Pause, stronger. Pause, sharper. Pause, smarter. Pause, the world never gave me a gift. Pause, it never offered mercy. Pause. It never handed me respect or recognition. Pause, so I took it. Pause, I claimed it. Pause, every bit of it. Long pause, I am no longer who I was. Pause, I am no longer defined by their expectations. Pause, I am no longer bound by the chains of doubt they tried to place on me. Pause, I am my own measure. Pause, I am my own standard. Pause, I am my own storm. Long pause, I look at the past and I do not flinch. Pause, I look at the moments of pain and I do not waver. Pause. I look at the betrayals and I do not hesitate. Pause every trial. Pause every hardship. Pause every moment of doubt cast by others. Pause all of it. Pause was necessary. Pause all of it. Pause built me. Pause all of it. Long pause made me unstoppable. Pause, they never saw it coming. Pause, they never understood it. Pause, they never knew what patience really meant. Pause, I did. Pause, I learned. Pause, I endured. Pause, I grew. Pause, and now, pause, I am inevitable. Long pause, the world may scream. Pause, it may resist. Pause, it may try to deny me, to contain me, to define me. Pause, it is too late. Pause, I have already become. Pause, I have already ascended. Pause, I have already conquered myself. Long pause, do not mistake this for rage. Pause, do not mistake this for vengeance. Pause, do not mistake this for reaction. Pause, this is mastery. Pause, this is control. Pause, this is the quiet, deadly strength of someone who has been tested and has grown beyond anyone's comprehension. Long pause, I see every misstep of those who doubted me. Pause, I hear every whisper of disbelief. Pause, I feel every tremor of fear they do not yet recognize in themselves. Pause, and I do nothing. Pause, because nothing I do can be undone. Pause, because nothing I do will surprise me. Pause, because I am already complete. Long pause, look at yourself. Pause, look at the scars you carry. Pause, look at the pain you endured. Pause. Do you see weakness? Pause, or do you see proof? Pause, proof that you survived. Pause, proof that you grew. Pause, proof that you are unstoppable. Long pause, I am not the person I was yesterday. Pause, I am not the person they wanted me to be. Pause, I am something else entirely. Pause, a force forged in patience, betrayal, and fire. Pause, I am the reflection of my own perseverance. Pause, I am the consequence of every slight. Pause, I am the victory they could not take from me. Long pause. I endured. Pause, I grew. Pause, I transformed. Pause, and now, pause, I am inevitable. Pause, unshakable. Pause, unstoppable. Long pause, I am the storm they cannot see. Pause, I am the shadow that moves silently. Pause, I am the force they never predicted. Pause, I am the one who survived. Pause, and became more than they could ever imagine. Long pause, invitation to the audience, listen closely. Pause, not to the world. Pause. Not to the whispers of doubt, the voices that tell you who to be, how to act, what to fear. Pause, listen to yourself. Pause, look at the strength buried beneath your hesitation. Pause, the power concealed under years of obedience. Pause, the fire waiting quietly behind the walls you built to survive. Long pause, do you feel it? Pause, the pulse of it. Pause, the rhythm of it. Pause, the silent drum that has always beaten in your chest, even when they told you it did not exist. Long pause. They will try to control you. Pause, they will try to mold you. Pause, they will try to tell you what is possible, what is allowed, what is safe. Pause, and yet, pause, you are already beyond their comprehension. Pause, you are already more than they imagined. Pause, do not fear their limits. Pause, do not fear their rules. Pause, do not fear their judgment. Pause, fear nothing that belongs to them. Long pause because you hold a power they cannot touch. Pause, a strength that has grown quietly in shadow. Pause. A mastery forged in patience, resilience, and understanding. Pause, do you see it? Pause, the threads of control they try to weave around you. Pause, they are fragile. Pause, they are brittle. Pause, and they break in the hands of one who understands. Long pause, look at yourself. Pause, look at every scar, every wound, every moment of doubt they inflicted. Pause, do you see weakness? Pause, or do you see evidence that you endured? Pause, that you grew? Pause. That you are already master of your own silence, of your own will. Long pause, they will tell you silence is submission. Pause, they will tell you patience is weakness. Pause, they will tell you inaction is cowardice. Pause, do not believe them. Pause, silence is your sword. Pause, patience is your armor. Pause, inaction is your strategy. Long pause, every moment they underestimate you is a moment you claim control. Pause, every word they speak against you is a shadow in which you grow stronger. Pause. Every doubt they sow is a seed for your inevitable rise. Pause, do you feel it now? Pause, that quiet strength swelling inside you. Pause, that calm certainty that does not need to shout. Pause, that deep knowledge that no one can make you less than what you already are. Long pause, I am not here to give you permission. Pause, I am not here to tell you it is safe. Pause, I am here to remind you of the power that already exists. Pause, I am here to show you the road that only you can walk. Long pause, step into it. Pause, step into your own shadow. Pause, step into your own strength. Pause, step into the place they told you was forbidden. Long pause, they will resist. Pause, they will fight to convince you otherwise. Pause, they will scream that control is theirs, that fear is theirs, that the world is theirs. Pause, let them scream. Pause, let them resist. Pause, let them tremble. Pause, because none of it can touch the calm authority you already carry. Long pause, every breath you take in silence is a declaration. Pause. Every step you take in quiet confidence is a strike. Pause, every decision made without hesitation is a conquest. Pause, do you understand? Pause, do you feel it reverberating through your chest, through your bones, through your mind? Pause, you are already a force. Pause, a master of yourself. Pause, a power they cannot contain. Long pause, no one gave you this strength. Pause, no one handed it over. Pause, you earned it. Pause, through every trial. Pause, through every betrayal. Pause, through every moment of quiet suffering that they never saw. Long pause, and now, pause, it is time. Pause, time to stand in it. Pause, time to claim it. Pause, time to move with the certainty of someone who has already survived every war they feared. Long pause, do not wait for validation. Pause, do not wait for permission. Pause, do not wait for the world to understand. Pause, understand yourself. Pause, own yourself. Pause, command yourself. Pause, and watch how the world bends. Long pause. They will try to confuse you. Pause, they will try to frighten you. Pause, they will try to control the narrative. Pause, do not let them. Pause, do not let them touch the center of your mind. Pause, do not let them steal the calm certainty that is yours alone. Long pause, you are not what they say. Pause, you are not what they fear. Pause, you are not what they imagine. Pause, you are more. Pause, stronger. Pause, sharper. Pause, unstoppable. Long pause, now hear me clearly. Pause, this is your invitation. Pause to take what is already yours. Pause to embrace your shadow. Pause to walk through fear, through doubt, through expectation. Pause and emerge as your own authority. Long pause, do not just survive. Pause, do not just endure. Pause, do not just exist. Pause, master. Pause, command. Pause, rise. Long pause, this is your power. Pause, this is your choice. Pause, this is your invitation. Pause, the rest. Pause is yours to claim. Long pause, legacy of power and silence they will never forget. Pause. The silence that came before the storm. Pause, the calm that preceded inevitability. Pause, I have walked through fire they never saw. Pause, I have endured betrayal that would have broken them. Pause, I have mastered patience when they demanded haste. Pause, and now, pause, I stand in the center of everything they tried to control. Pause, and it bends. Pause, not with violence. Pause, not with threats. Pause, but with quiet authority. Long pause, do you see it? Pause. The world scrambling, trying to measure what cannot be measured. Pause, the whispers, the fear, the confusion. Pause, it is mine. Pause, because I claim it not with words, but with presence. Long pause, silence is my weapon. Pause, silence is my throne. Pause, silence is the echo of all their doubts turned against them. Pause, I do not shout. Pause, I do not demand attention. Pause, I do not fight for respect. Pause, I exist. Pause, and the world listens. Pause, every motion I make is deliberate. Pause, every word I withhold is calculated. Pause, every pause is a testament to control they cannot hope to understand. Long pause, do you feel the weight of it? Pause, the gravity of someone who has taken what was denied, who has endured what they could not endure, who has risen beyond the reach of their expectations. Pause, this is not vengeance. Pause, this is not rage. Pause, this is inevitability. Pause, the world never changed. Pause, I did. Pause. And in that transformation lies the true power. Long pause, every eye that meets mine now sees the impossible. Pause, every heart that hears my words feels the quiet storm beneath. Pause, every mind that doubts trembles at the inevitability of my dominion. Pause, I took what they denied me. Pause, not with anger. Pause, not with cruelty. Pause with patience. Pause with understanding. Pause with precision. Long pause, and now pause, it is absolute. Pause, unyielding. Pause, inescapable. Pause. They wanted me broken. Pause, but I am whole. Pause, they wanted me silenced. Pause, but my silence speaks louder than their screams. Pause, they wanted me small. Pause, and I am infinite. Long pause, look at me. Pause, look at yourself. Pause, do you see weakness? Pause, or do you see what is possible when you take power and refuse to release it? Pause, this is more than mastery. Pause, this is more than authority. Pause, this is legacy. Pause, the kind that does not fade with time. Pause. The kind that reverberates through silence, through absence, through memory. Long pause, they will try to forget. Pause, they will try to rewrite history. Pause, they will try to claim they knew nothing. Pause, let them. Pause, their attempts cannot touch what is true. Pause, their denials cannot erase what has been claimed. Pause this silence, pause this throne, pause this inevitability. Pause is mine. Pause, it always was. Pause, you see, power is not given. Pause, it is taken. Pause, it is earned. Pause. And it is wielded with precision, patience, and calm. Long pause, and now the world has no choice. Pause, no choice but to notice. Pause, no choice but to reckon with it. Pause, no choice but to understand that this is the apex of mastery. Pause, this is inevitability made flesh. Pause, do not mistake this for cruelty. Pause, do not mistake this for anger. Pause, this is clarity. Pause, this is inevitability. Pause, this is legacy. Long pause, let them watch. Pause. Let them fear. Pause, let them remember who I became. Pause, I stopped explaining. Pause, and the world had no choice, pause, but to listen. Long pause, look around. Pause, the chaos they left behind is yours to command. Pause, the doubts they planted are yours to harvest. Pause, the fear they spread is yours to wield. Long pause, rise in the quiet. Pause, stand in inevitability. Pause, move with calm precision. Pause, and let silence roar louder than any cry. Long pause. This is the throne without a crown. Pause, the kingdom without subjects. Pause, the power without apology. Pause, the victory without demonstration. Pause, and it is yours. Pause, it has always been yours. Pause because you endured. Pause because you mastered. Pause because you are unbreakable. Long pause, remember this. Pause, carry this. Pause and let no one ever forget. Pause that those who survive, those who endure, those who understand. Pause will rise above the world. Pause and command it. Pause. With silence. Pause with inevitability. Pause with absolute authority. Long pause, let them watch. Pause, let them fear. Pause, let them remember who I became. Pause, who you can become. Long pause, this is the end. Pause and the beginning. Pause because power is not a moment. Pause, it is legacy. Pause and mine. Pause is eternal. Long pause, they thought silence was weakness. Pause, they thought absence meant surrender. Pause, they did not know. Pause, I am the shadow in their certainty. Pause. Fire they cannot extinguish. Pause, the steel they cannot bend. Pause, every word I withheld was a strike. Pause, every motion I denied them was control. Pause, every pause became a throne. Pause, look at the world they built. Pause, do you see the cracks? Pause, do you see the trembling hands, the furrowed brows, the panic behind composed faces? Pause, it is smaller now. Pause, it fits into my shadow. Pause, I do not move with haste. Pause, I do not shout. Pause, I do not demand attention. Pause, I exist. Pause, and they feel it. Pause, let them hate. Pause, let them fear. Pause, let them watch. Long pause, every betrayal they delivered fed the steel of my will. Pause, every doubt they planted hardened into the armor I wear. Pause, every slight became the fire beneath my resolve. Pause, I took what was denied. Pause, I claimed what was mine. Pause, I forged myself in shadows and emerged as inevitability. Pause, do not mistake stillness for submission. Pause. Do not mistake silence for weakness. Pause, this calm is dominance. Pause, this pause is authority. Pause, this absence is terror. Long pause, I do not bend. Pause, I do not sway. Pause, I do not falter. Pause, they wanted spectacle. Pause, I give inevitability. Pause, look at yourselves. Pause, do you see what patience can build? Pause, do you feel what control demands? Pause, the fire is quiet now. Pause, the steel is sharp. Pause, the shadow stretches long. Pause, let them remember. Pause. Let them fear. Pause, let them watch. Pause, because this is more than presence. Pause, this is legacy. Pause, this is the echo of all that they underestimated. Pause, I leave no warnings. Pause, I leave no explanations. Pause, I leave only certainty. Pause, and the world inevitably listens. Long pause, let them watch. Pause, let them fear. Pause, let them remember. Pause, who I became. Long pause, this silence. Pause, this throne. Pause, this inevitability. Pause is eternal. Pause. Let them hate. Pause, let them fear. Pause, let them watch. Long pause, and as they do, pause, know this. Pause, I stopped explaining. Pause, and the world had no choice. Pause, but to listen. Long pause, fade.